Right now, as you listen to this, something unprecedented is happening in the space between Earth and Mars. Deep space monitoring stations have detected what can only be described as impossible. A coordinated swarm of asteroid-sized objects converging on our solar system's most enigmatic visitor, 3L Atlas. This isn't the random cosmic debris we're accustomed to tracking. These objects move with purpose, following trajectories that defy every model of celestial mechanics we've developed over centuries of astronomical observation. The interstellar wanderer 3L Atlas, which captured global attention during its remarkable 2025 passage through our solar system, should have been safely beyond Mars' orbit by now, beginning its long journey back into the cosmic dark. Instead, it finds itself under siege by forces that challenge our understanding of how objects behave in the vacuum of space. What we're witnessing defies explanation through conventional physics, yet the evidence accumulates with each passing hour of observation. The first anomalous readings appeared on January 15, 2026, when deep space tracking stations detected unusual gravitational perturbations in the region where 3L Atlas was completing its exit from the inner solar system. Initially dismissed as instrumental error or background cosmic noise, these signatures quickly evolved into something far more alarming. Multiple independent monitoring systems began reporting the same impossible data. Dozens of objects, each roughly 50 to 200 meters in diameter, were approaching 3L Atlas from multiple directions simultaneously. These weren't random asteroids following natural gravitational trajectories. The mathematical precision of their approach vectors suggested coordination that shouldn't exist among inanimate chunks of rock and ice, floating in the emptiness between worlds. Each object maintained perfect spacing relative to its companions, creating geometric patterns that remained stable across millions of kilometers of space. No known force could account for such organization among objects that should be gravitationally independent. Dr. Sarah Chen, director of the International Deep Space Monitoring Consortium, first noticed the anomaly during routine analysis of tracking data from the Arecibo successor array. The signature was unlike anything in our database, she recalls. We were looking at approximately 40 discrete objects maintaining formation stability that would challenge our most sophisticated spacecraft guidance systems. Natural objects simply don't behave this way. The swarm's composition adds another layer to the mystery. Spectroscopic analysis reveals materials that match no known asteroid classifications. These objects exhibit reflectance patterns and thermal signatures that suggest artificial construction or processing, yet they emit no detectable radio signals or electronic signatures that would indicate active technology. They appear to be dead, inert chunks of exotic matter following guidance systems that operate through principles beyond current scientific understanding. Size estimates place individual swarm members in the city killer category, objects capable of devastating regional areas if they were to impact a planetary surface. Their combined mass approaches that of a small mountain, concentrated into a formation that could overwhelm any defensive systems currently deployed throughout the solar system. Yet their target appears to be not Earth or any inhabited world, but the alien visitor that has already begun its departure from our cosmic neighborhood. The attack, if that's what we're witnessing, follows no recognizable military or predatory pattern. The swarm members don't appear to be accelerating toward 3L Atlas with collision intent. Instead, they're establishing what can only be described as a containment formation, surrounding the interstellar visitor with geometric precision that prevents any escape trajectory toward deep space. It's as if they're herding 3L Atlas like cosmic shepherds managing a wayward flock member. Orbital mechanics calculations reveal the impossibility of what we're observing. For multiple objects to achieve such precise positioning relative to a target moving at interplanetary velocities requires navigation capabilities and propulsion systems far exceeding anything in the human technological arsenal. The energy requirements alone would dwarf the output of major power plants, yet no thermal signatures indicate the kind of massive propulsion that conventional physics would require. Communication attempts directed toward both 3L Atlas and the surrounding swarm have yielded no responses. Radio telescopes worldwide have focused on the formation, broadcasting mathematical sequences, prime numbers, and basic physical constants in hopes of establishing contact with whatever intelligence might be directing these events. The silence remains absolute, broken only by the faint thermal radiation and reflected sunlight that allows us to track the object's positions and trajectories. The timing of this confrontation cannot be coincidental. 3L Atlas spent months traversing our inner solar system, approaching perihelion and providing spectacular observational opportunities for astronomers worldwide. During its entire visible passage, no swarm objects were detected despite intensive monitoring by dozens of space agencies and research institutions. These attackers, or captors, emerged from the cosmic background only after the interstellar visitor began its outbound journey. This suggests either remarkable camouflage capabilities that render objects invisible until they choose to reveal themselves, or deployment from staging areas beyond our current detection range. Either possibility indicates technological sophistication that challenges assumptions about our solar system's security and the effectiveness of our space surveillance networks. We may be far less aware of our cosmic neighborhood's true activity than we've assumed. The psychological impact on the global astronomical community cannot be overstated. Decades of patient observation and theoretical development have prepared us for the possibility of discovering life elsewhere in the universe. We've constructed elaborate protocols for first contact scenarios and developed frameworks for interpreting potential alien artifacts. But nothing in our preparation imagined witnessing what appears to be interstellar conflict playing out in our own solar system, with Earth as an unwilling spectator. Mission planners at space agencies worldwide are scrambling to assess whether any existing spacecraft or planned missions could reach the engagement zone while events remain active. The distances involved place the action well beyond the reach of current propulsion technology, leaving humanity in the frustrating position of witnessing cosmic drama while being powerless to intervene or investigate directly. We remain observers of events that could reshape our understanding of intelligence and conflict on galactic scales. The media response has been predictably sensational, with headlines ranging from alien war in our solar system to Earth under siege by unknown forces. Scientific institutions work overtime to provide accurate information while acknowledging the profound uncertainty surrounding events that push against the boundaries of established knowledge. The distinction between verified observation and speculative interpretation becomes crucial when dealing with phenomena that challenge fundamental assumptions about how the universe operates. Public reaction ranges from fascination to fear as populations grapple with the realization that our solar system may harbor intelligent activity that operates beyond human awareness or control. The sense of cosmic isolation that has characterized human civilization since its beginning faces the first serious challenge in recorded history. We're not alone, but the neighbors we've discovered seem preoccupied with business that doesn't include us. Amateur astronomers worldwide train their telescopes toward Mars' orbit, hoping to catch glimpses of the unfolding drama. Advanced imaging systems reveal the swarm formation as a faint cluster of moving points against the stellar background, but the distances involved prevent detailed observation of individual objects or the specific nature of their interaction with 3L Atlas. We can measure their positions and velocities with increasing precision, but their purposes and methods remain as mysterious as their origins. The containment formation continues to tighten around 3L Atlas with mathematical precision that suggests active guidance rather than passive response to gravitational influences. Each swarm member maintains its designated position, while the entire formation gradually contracts, reducing the volume of space available to the trapped interstellar visitor. Whatever intelligence directs this operation demonstrates patience and planning that spans the vast distances and timescales of interplanetary space. As observation networks worldwide focus their resources on documenting this unprecedented event, one question dominates every conversation among astronomers, military strategists, and policymakers. If unknown forces can coordinate such precise operations in our solar system, while remaining undetected until they choose to reveal themselves, what does this mean for Earth's security and humanity's place in what we're beginning to realize may be a far more crowded and active cosmos than we ever imagined? The silent approach phase is ending. As the swarm tightens its grip around 3L Atlas, we prepare to witness the next stage of an encounter that may represent the first documented case of interstellar conflict observed by human eyes. The universe has always been stranger than we imagined, but never before has that strangeness arrived so close to home. The interstellar wanderer 3L Atlas, which captured global attention during its remarkable 2025 passage through our solar system, should have been safely beyond Mars' orbit by now, beginning its long journey back into the cosmic dark. Instead, it finds itself under siege by forces that challenge our understanding of how objects behave in the vacuum of space. What we're witnessing defies explanation through conventional physics, yet the evidence accumulates with each passing hour of observation. The first anomalous readings appeared on January 15, 2026, when deep space tracking stations detected unusual gravitational perturbations in the region where 3L Atlas was completing its exit from the inner solar system. Initially dismissed as instrumental error or background cosmic noise, these signatures quickly evolved into something far more alarming. Multiple independent monitoring systems began reporting the same impossible data. Dozens of objects, each roughly 50 to 200 meters in diameter, were approaching 3L Atlas from multiple directions simultaneously. These weren't random asteroids following natural gravitational trajectories. The mathematical precision of their approach vectors suggested coordination that shouldn't exist among inanimate chunks of rock and ice, floating in the emptiness between worlds. Each object maintained perfect spacing relative to its companions, creating geometric patterns that remained stable across millions of kilometers of space. No known force could account for such organization among objects that should be gravitationally independent. Dr. Sarah Chen, director of the International Deep Space Monitoring Consortium, first noticed the anomaly during routine analysis of tracking data from the Arecibo successor array. The signature was unlike anything in our database, she recalls. We were looking at approximately 40 discrete objects maintaining formation stability that would challenge our most sophisticated spacecraft guidance systems. Natural objects simply don't behave this way. The swarm's composition adds another layer to the mystery. Spectroscopic analysis reveals materials that match no known asteroid classifications. These objects exhibit reflectance patterns and thermal signatures that suggest artificial construction or processing, yet they emit no detectable radio signals or electronic signatures that would indicate active technology. They appear to be dead, inert chunks of exotic matter following guidance systems that operate through principles beyond current scientific understanding. Size estimates place individual swarm members in the city killer category, objects capable of devastating regional areas if they were to impact a planetary surface. Their combined mass approaches that of a small mountain, concentrated into a formation that could overwhelm any defensive systems currently deployed throughout the solar system. Yet their target appears to be not Earth or any inhabited world, but the alien visitor that has already begun its departure from our cosmic neighborhood. The attack, if that's what we're witnessing, follows no recognizable military or predatory pattern. The swarm members don't appear to be accelerating toward 3L Atlas with collision intent. Instead, they're establishing what can only be described as a containment formation, surrounding the interstellar visitor with geometric precision that prevents any escape trajectory toward deep space. It's as if they're herding 3L Atlas like cosmic shepherds managing a wayward flock member. Orbital mechanics calculations reveal the impossibility of what we're observing. For multiple objects to achieve such precise positioning relative to a target moving at interplanetary velocities requires navigation capabilities and propulsion systems far exceeding anything in the human technological arsenal. The energy requirements alone would dwarf the output of major power plants, yet no thermal signatures indicate the kind of massive propulsion that conventional physics would require. Communication attempts directed toward both 3L Atlas and the surrounding swarm have yielded no responses. Radio telescopes worldwide have focused on the formation, broadcasting mathematical sequences, prime numbers, and basic physical constants in hopes of establishing contact with whatever intelligence might be directing these events. The silence remains absolute, broken only by the faint thermal radiation and reflected sunlight that allows us to track the object's positions and trajectories. The timing of this confrontation cannot be coincidental. 3L Atlas spent months traversing our inner solar system, approaching perihelion and providing spectacular observational opportunities for astronomers worldwide. During its entire visible passage, no swarm objects were detected despite intensive monitoring by dozens of space agencies and research institutions. These attackers, or captors, emerged from the cosmic background only after the interstellar visitor began its outbound journey. This suggests either remarkable camouflage capabilities that render objects invisible until they choose to reveal themselves, or deployment from staging areas beyond our current detection range. Either possibility indicates technological sophistication that challenges assumptions about our solar system's security and the effectiveness of our space surveillance networks. We may be far less aware of our cosmic neighborhood's true activity than we've assumed. The psychological impact on the global astronomical community cannot be overstated. Decades of patient observation and theoretical development have prepared us for the possibility of discovering life elsewhere in the universe. We've constructed elaborate protocols for first contact scenarios and developed frameworks for interpreting potential alien artifacts, but nothing in our preparation imagined witnessing what appears to be interstellar conflict playing out in our own solar system, with Earth as an unwilling spectator. Mission planners at space agencies worldwide are scrambling to assess whether any existing spacecraft or planned missions could reach the engagement zone while events remain active. The distances involved place the action well beyond the reach of current propulsion technology, leaving humanity in the frustrating position of witnessing cosmic drama while being powerless to intervene or investigate directly. We remain observers of events that could reshape our understanding of intelligence and conflict on galactic scales. The media response has been predictably sensational, with headlines ranging from alien war in our solar system to Earth under siege by unknown forces. Scientific institutions work overtime to provide accurate information while acknowledging the profound uncertainties surrounding events that push against the boundaries of established knowledge. The distinction between verified observation and speculative interpretation becomes crucial when dealing with phenomena that challenge fundamental assumptions about how the universe operates. Public reaction ranges from fascination to fear, as populations grapple with the realization that our solar system may harbor intelligent activity that operates beyond human awareness or control. The sense of cosmic isolation that has characterized human civilization since its beginning faces the first serious challenge in recorded history. We're not alone, but the neighbors we've discovered seem preoccupied with business that doesn't include us. Amateur astronomers worldwide train their telescopes toward Mars' orbit, hoping to catch glimpses of the unfolding drama. Advanced imaging systems reveal the swarm formation as a faint cluster of moving points against the stellar background. But the distances involved prevent detailed observation of individual objects or the specific nature of their interaction with 3L Atlas. We can measure their positions and velocities with increasing precision, but their purposes and methods remain as mysterious as their origins. The containment formation continues to tighten around 3L Atlas with mathematical precision that suggests active guidance rather than passive response to gravitational influences. Each swarm member maintains its designated position, while the entire formation gradually contracts, reducing the volume of space available to the trapped interstellar visitor. Whatever intelligence directs this operation demonstrates patience and planning that spans the vast distances and timescales of interplanetary space. As observation networks worldwide focus their resources on documenting this unprecedented event, one question dominates every conversation among astronomers, military strategists, and policymakers. If unknown forces can coordinate such precise operations in our solar system, while remaining undetected until they choose to reveal themselves, what does this mean for Earth's security and humanity's place in what we're beginning to realize may be a far more crowded and active cosmos than we ever imagined? The mathematics of what we're observing defy every model of celestial mechanics developed over 4 centuries of astronomical study. When Dr. Elena Kowalski, orbital dynamics specialist at the European Space Operations Centre, first ran the trajectory calculations for the asteroid swarm surrounding 3L Atlas, her computer flagged the results as corrupted data. No natural system could produce the geometric perfection she was witnessing. "I've calculated orbits for thousands of asteroids, comets, and spacecraft," Dr. Kowalski explains, her voice tight with controlled frustration. "Objects in space follow predictable paths determined by gravity, momentum, and occasional perturbations from planetary bodies or solar radiation pressure. What we're seeing here violates every fundamental principle of orbital mechanics. These objects are maintaining formations that require constant course corrections using energy sources we cannot identify. The swarm consists of 43 individual objects, each maintaining precise spacing relative to its neighbours, while the entire formation executes complex maneuvers around 3L Atlas. The mathematical precision required to coordinate such movements across millions of kilometres of space exceeds the computational capacity of every space agency's flight control systems combined. Yet these objects, presumably lacking any advanced guidance systems, perform these calculations effortlessly. Consider the energy requirements. Each course correction necessary to maintain formation integrity demands thrust equivalent to what human spacecraft achieve through chemical or ion propulsion systems. Multiply this by 43 objects making continuous adjustments, and the total energy expenditure approaches the output of a small nuclear reactor. No asteroid-sized object could carry sufficient fuel reserves to sustain such operations across the weeks or months required for the current engagement. The geometric analysis reveals patterns that push beyond coincidence into the realm of intentional design. The swarm objects arrange themselves in what mathematicians recognize as a truncated icosahedron, a complex three-dimensional structure that maximizes coverage while minimizing energy expenditure for maintaining positions. This configuration appears in advanced mathematics and engineering applications, but never in natural asteroid formations where random gravitational influences should produce chaotic, asymmetrical clustering. Dr. James Morrison, computational astrophysicist at Caltech, has been running Monte Carlo simulations to calculate the probability of such precise formation occurring through natural processes. After 10 million iterations, his models have failed to produce even a crude approximation of the observed geometry. The odds are so astronomically small that we lack appropriate mathematical notation to express them, he reports. We're looking at something that cannot happen accidentally. Each swarm member follows a trajectory that violates conservation of momentum in subtle but measurable ways. Objects occasionally accelerate without expelling reaction mass, change direction without losing velocity, or maintain constant speeds despite gravitational influences that should alter their motion. These violations are small, typically less than 0.1% deviations from predicted behavior, but they accumulate over time to produce the impossible coordination we're witnessing. Thermal imaging from infrared space telescopes adds another layer of mystery to the engagement. The swarm objects maintain temperatures roughly 20 degrees Kelvin, above what solar heating alone should produce at their current distance from the Sun. This excess thermal radiation suggests internal heat sources, possibly nuclear decay or exotic energy production methods. But spectroscopic analysis reveals no radioactive materials or known chemical processes that could account for the observed temperatures. The containment strategy employed by the swarm demonstrates strategic thinking that challenges assumptions about asteroid intelligence or artificial guidance systems. 3L Atlas cannot escape the formation through any conventional means because every potential trajectory encounters swarm members positioned to block or redirect its motion. The interstellar visitor has become trapped in a gravitational maze with no exit routes that don't require passing through the asteroid barrier. Navigation analysis reveals the impossible precision required to establish such a containment grid. Each swarm object had to arrive at its designated position, with timing accuracy measured in minutes across journeys spanning months or years. This level of coordination requires communication systems operating faster than light speed, or pre-planning so detailed that it accounts for every gravitational perturbation and solar radiation effect throughout the approach phase. Dr. Chen's team has attempted to identify the command and control mechanisms that enable such precise coordination. Radio telescopes operating across all frequency bands detect no communication signals between swarm members, while gravitational wave detectors find no evidence of exotic physics that might enable instantaneous information transfer. The objects appear to operate through shared knowledge that exists independently of any detectable communication medium. The mathematical models describing 3L Atlas's situation grow more complex with each observation cycle. The interstellar visitor's attempts to break free from containment follow patterns that suggest intelligence rather than random thrashing against gravitational constraints. It makes systematic probes of the barrier formation, testing different escape vectors with methodical precision that indicates strategic analysis of its captor's deployment patterns. Computer simulations attempting to model escape scenarios consistently fail to find viable solutions. 3L Atlas possesses insufficient mass to gravitationally disrupt the swarm formation, while its trajectory options are constrained by the perfect spacing maintained by its captors. Every potential escape route leads through gaps that close before the interstellar visitor can reach them, as if the swarm anticipates and counters each escape attempt before it begins. The energy dynamics of the engagement defy standard physics in ways that make traditional analysis impossible. Conservation laws that govern every other observed phenomenon in space appear suspended in the region surrounding 3L Atlas. Objects gain kinetic energy without losing potential energy, change momentum without generating equivalent reaction forces, and maintain stable orbits that should decay under normal gravitational influences. Professional astronomers worldwide collaborate on data analysis that grows more puzzling with each measurement cycle. Parallax observations from multiple space telescopes confirm the geometric precision of the swarm formation, while spectroscopic data reveals material compositions that match no known asteroid classes. These objects appear to be constructed from substances that don't occur naturally in solar system formation processes. The temporal aspects of the engagement suggest planning horizons that span geological timescales. For the swarm to intercept 3L Atlas at precisely the moment when the interstellar visitor began its exit from our solar system requires predictions about gravitational influences, orbital perturbations, and timing factors that human astronomers struggle to calculate even with supercomputer assistance. Whatever intelligence orchestrated this interception operates with foresight that dwarfs human strategic planning capabilities. Military analysts studying the containment formation identify tactical principles that mirror advanced siege warfare adapted for three-dimensional space operations. The swarm establishes overlapping fields of coverage that eliminate gaps through which a target might escape, while maintaining sufficient flexibility to respond to breakout attempts from any direction. These are not random asteroid movements, but coordinated military maneuvers executed with precision that challenges human operational capabilities. The impossibility extends beyond mathematics into fundamental physics. Objects maintaining the observed formation geometry should experience tidal forces and gravitational gradients that disrupt their structural integrity over time. Instead, each swarm member appears perfectly stable, showing no signs of stress fractures, rotation rate changes, or surface erosion that normal asteroid interactions should produce during extended close-formation flying. As we continue documenting this unprecedented engagement, one fact becomes increasingly clear. We're witnessing operations that transcend current scientific understanding of how objects behave in space. The mathematics describe impossible coordination, the physics violate conservation laws, and the strategic implications suggest intelligence operating on scales that dwarf human comprehension. Whatever force has trapped 3L Atlas in this cosmic net possesses capabilities that redefine what we thought possible in our solar system. The behavior patterns emerging from 3 weeks of continuous observation reveal a sophisticated game of cosmic chess playing out in the void between Earth and Mars. 3L Atlas, despite being outnumbered 43-1, refuses to submit passively to its captors. The interstellar visitor has begun executing maneuvers that suggest not just intelligence, but strategic thinking that adapts to its captors' containment efforts with increasingly desperate creativity. Dr. Marcus Webb, tactical analysis specialist with the European Space Agency's Deep Space Monitoring Division, has identified what can only be described as systematic probing attacks by 3L Atlas against the asteroid barrier surrounding it. The pattern is unmistakable, he explains. Reviewing trajectory data that spans the past 72 hours, 3L Atlas makes coordinated thrust burns towards specific sectors of the containment formation, testing response times and defensive positioning. This isn't random thrashing, it's intelligence gathering. Each escape attempt follows the same methodical pattern. 3L Atlas accelerates toward what appears to be the weakest point in the swarm formation, forcing the asteroid barriers to contract and reinforce the threatened sector. As the defenders move to block the potential breakthrough, the interstellar visitor suddenly changes course, probing a different section of the containment grid. These feints reveal the swarm's response protocols while mapping the tactical flexibility available to its captors. The energy expenditure required for these maneuvers defies current understanding of comet propulsion capabilities. 3L Atlas lacks the massive chemical rocket engines that would be necessary to generate the observed thrust levels through conventional means. Yet spectroscopic analysis during acceleration phases shows no evidence of exhaust plumes, reaction mass ejection, or thermal signatures associated with traditional rocket propulsion. The object appears to accelerate through unknown principles that violate Newton's third law. Most remarkably, 3L Atlas demonstrates learning behavior that evolves with each failed escape attempt. Early probing attacks followed predictable geometric patterns that the swarm easily countered. Recent efforts show increasing sophistication, incorporating deception tactics and multi-vector approaches that force the asteroid barrier to split its defensive response across multiple threatened sectors simultaneously. The interstellar visitor is adapting its strategy based on observed swarm reactions. The swarm's counter-responses reveal equally sophisticated tactical thinking. Rather than simply maintaining static positions around their captive, the asteroid formation executes dynamic repositioning that anticipates 3L Atlas's likely escape vectors before the interstellar visitor commits to specific approach directions. This predictive behavior suggests either advanced pattern recognition capabilities or shared consciousness that enables collective tactical analysis. Communication intercepts during engagement phases remain frustratingly silent across all monitored frequency bands. If the combatants exchange tactical information or coordination signals, they employ methods that operate outside the electromagnetic spectrum we're capable of detecting. The coordination appears instantaneous regardless of the light speed delays that should limit information transfer across the millions of kilometers separating swarm members. Dr. Chen's analysis team has documented 17 distinct escape attempts by 3L Atlas, each defeated through precise countermeasures that require split-second timing and perfect coordination among multiple swarm elements. The mathematical probability of achieving such defensive success rates through random chance approaches 0. We're witnessing the operation of a collective intelligence that processes tactical information and implements coordinated responses faster than human military systems could achieve even with unlimited computational resources. The psychological warfare aspects of the engagement add another disturbing dimension to the confrontation. The swarm appears to be deliberately prolonging the encounter rather than concluding it through direct action. Analysis of optimal intercept trajectories reveals that the asteroid formation could have captured or destroyed 3L Atlas within hours of initial contact. Instead, they maintain the containment while allowing their captive to exhaust itself through futile escape attempts. This pattern suggests either scientific curiosity about 3L Atlas's capabilities or a form of psychological conditioning designed to break the interstellar visitor's resistance through demonstration of tactical helplessness. Military analysts studying the engagement identify parallels with siege warfare techniques designed to force surrender through attrition rather than direct assault. The swarm appears to be teaching 3L Atlas that resistance is futile. The physical toll on 3L Atlas becomes apparent through careful analysis of its trajectory modifications over time. Each escape attempt requires energy expenditure that depletes whatever exotic propulsion reserves enable its impossible maneuvers. Recent probing attacks show decreased acceleration rates and shorter duration thrust burns, suggesting that the interstellar visitor's mysterious propulsion system operates within finite energy constraints despite violating known physical laws. Thermal imaging reveals another troubling development. 3L Atlas's surface temperature has been steadily increasing throughout the engagement period, rising approximately 2 degrees Kelvin above baseline levels established during its initial solar system passage. This thermal buildup suggests internal stress or energy system overload that could indicate approaching breakdown of whatever exotic technology enables the object's remarkable maneuvering capabilities. The containment grid continues to contract with mechanical precision that demonstrates the swarm's confidence in ultimate victory. Current spacing between asteroid barriers measures approximately 50,000 kilometers, down from the initial 150,000 kilometer perimeter established during first contact. At current contraction rates, the formation will compress to final capture geometry within approximately 6 days, assuming 3L Atlas cannot discover breakthrough tactics that overcome its captor's defensive advantages. Spectroscopic analysis during combat phases reveals fascinating details about 3L Atlas's exotic composition. High acceleration maneuvers trigger emission lines from elements that don't appear in standard periodic tables, suggesting the interstellar visitor contains materials forged under conditions that don't exist in normal stellar nucleosynthesis processes. These substances might represent the key to its impossible propulsion capabilities, or evidence of technological manufacturing processes that dwarf human industrial capabilities. The strategic implications extend far beyond the immediate tactical situation. If unknown forces can coordinate such precise military operations in our solar system, while demonstrating technological capabilities that violate established physics, traditional concepts of planetary defense and space security become meaningless. Current military doctrine assumes that threats will operate within known physical constraints and follow predictable tactical patterns. The engagement near Mars challenges both assumptions simultaneously. Amateur astronomers worldwide contribute crucial observational data through distributed monitoring networks that complement professional space surveillance systems. Photography enthusiasts capture images showing the gradual contraction of the containment formation, while advanced amateur spectrographs detect emission line variations during acceleration phases that professional instruments miss due to limited observation time allocation. This citizen science contribution multiplies our analytical capabilities while democratizing participation in documenting humanity's first observed interstellar conflict. The media narrative has evolved from initial sensationalism toward more sophisticated analysis, as the engagement's tactical complexity becomes apparent. Military commentators provide frameworks for understanding the strategic principles at work, while science communicators explain the physics violations that make conventional analysis impossible. Public education about orbital mechanics and space warfare tactics reaches unprecedented levels as populations worldwide follow the cosmic chess match unfolding beyond Mars. International space agencies coordinate observation schedules to maintain continuous coverage of the engagement zone, but distance limitations prevent detailed analysis of individual combat maneuvers. We can track the overall patterns and strategic evolution, but the specific tactics employed during close-quarters maneuvering remain hidden by resolution limits that even our most powerful space telescopes cannot overcome at such ranges. As the containment grid continues its relentless contraction, and 3L Atlas's escape attempts grow more desperate, we approach what tactical analysts believe will be the final phase of this unprecedented interstellar encounter. Whether the outcome involves capture, destruction, or some form of negotiated resolution remains unknown, but the implications for humanity's understanding of intelligence and conflict in space will reshape strategic thinking for generations. The hunter's gambit plays out according to rules we're only beginning to comprehend, in a cosmic arena where the laws of physics themselves appear negotiable to civilizations whose capabilities transcend our current scientific understanding. The breakthrough came at 1437 GMT on February 8th, when the Very Large Array in New Mexico detected something that changed everything we thought we knew about the engagement near Mars. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, the facility's senior radio astronomer, was conducting routine background radiation measurements when her instruments registered a signal that shouldn't exist, a structured electromagnetic transmission originating from the exact coordinates where 3L Atlas struggles against its asteroid captors. The signal pattern was unlike anything in our database, Dr. Martinez recalls, her voice tight with the controlled excitement that characterizes astronomers who've stumbled upon the impossible. We were looking at a coherent radio transmission with clear mathematical structure, broadcasting on a frequency that penetrates interplanetary space with minimal interference. Someone, or something, was deliberately trying to communicate. The transmission lasted exactly 11 minutes and 43 seconds before cutting off abruptly, leaving only the familiar cosmic background radiation that fills the void between worlds. During those precious minutes, the signal repeated a complex mathematical sequence 47 times with perfect precision, suggesting either automated broadcasting or intelligence capable of maintaining absolute consistency across multiple transmission cycles. Initial analysis revealed that the signal originated not from 3L Atlas itself, but from a point approximately 12,000 kilometers away from the interstellar visitor's current position. This placement puts the transmission source well within the asteroid swarm's containment perimeter, suggesting that one of the attacking objects had suddenly decided to break its previously absolute radio silence. The implications were staggering. We were potentially witnessing first contact with an alien intelligence in the middle of an interstellar conflict. Dr. James Petroff, cryptanalysis specialist with the International SETI Consortium, led the team tasked with decoding the mathematical structure embedded in the transmission. Working around the clock with computational linguists and xenobiologists from 12 countries, his team identified patterns that defied conventional assumptions about how alien intelligence might attempt communication with primitive civilizations. The mathematics were sophisticated beyond our initial expectations, Dr. Petrov explains. This wasn't a simple counting sequence or basic geometric progression designed for species just discovering radio technology. We were looking at concepts from advanced topology and quantum field theory, transmitted with the assumption that the receiving civilization possessed graduate-level understanding of theoretical physics. The signal structure revealed itself as a nested hierarchy of mathematical concepts, beginning with fundamental constants like pi and the fine structure constant, then building toward more complex relationships involving multidimensional geometry and what appeared to be equations describing exotic matter interactions. Each concept was encoded using prime number sequences as punctuation marks, creating a universal mathematical language that could theoretically be understood by any technologically advanced civilization. Most remarkably, the transmission included what cryptanalysts interpreted as a real-time tactical assessment of the engagement between 3L Atlas and the asteroid swarm. The mathematical relationships described force vectors, energy expenditures, and probability calculations that matched observed patterns in the ongoing conflict. Someone was providing a running commentary on the space battle using pure mathematics as their communication medium. The source of the transmission raised immediate questions about which side in the conflict was attempting communication. Position analysis placed the signal origin within the asteroid formation rather than from 3L Atlas itself, suggesting that the attacking swarm contained at least one element interested in establishing contact with human observers. This possibility transformed our understanding of the engagement from a simple predator-prey scenario into something far more complex and potentially diplomatic. Follow-up analysis revealed subtle variations in signal strength and frequency modulation that suggested multiple transmission sources operating in coordination. Rather than a single broadcaster, the evidence pointed toward a distributed communication network involving several swarm members working together to deliver a coherent message. This level of coordination matched the tactical sophistication observed in the containment formation, suggesting that communication and combat operations shared the same underlying command structure. Doctor. Chen's team immediately began preparing a response transmission, broadcasting mathematical acknowledgements and basic physics equations toward the engagement zone. The effort faced significant challenges due to the vast distances involved and the uncertain communication protocols preferred by alien intelligence. Traditional city response frameworks assumed stationary targets and extended communication opportunities, not mobile combatants engaged in high-speed tactical maneuvering. The response transmission consisted of prime number sequences, basic mathematical operations, and physics constants that demonstrated human understanding of the concepts included in the original alien message. Earth's most powerful radio telescopes focused their transmission beams toward the swarm formation, broadcasting continuously across multiple frequency bands to maximize the probability of successful reception. For 36 hours, the cosmic silence returned. Radio telescopes worldwide maintained constant monitoring of the engagement zone, while deep space communication networks prepared for potential follow-up transmissions. The waiting period allowed time for detailed analysis of the original signal's mathematical content, revealing layers of complexity that suggested the alien broadcasters possessed scientific understanding far exceeding current human knowledge. The second transmission arrived without warning on February 10th, originating from a different position within the swarm formation, but displaying the same mathematical structure and encoding protocols. This message, however, contained something unprecedented, what appeared to be star charts showing the local galactic neighborhood with specific stellar systems, highlighted through coordinate references and distance measurements. Astronomical analysis revealed that the highlighted systems corresponded to known exoplanet candidates detected by space-based survey telescopes over the past decade. The alien transmission was providing information about inhabited worlds within a 50 light-year radius of Earth, using mathematical precision that confirmed the existence of advanced civilizations around stars that human astronomers had identified as potentially habitable through indirect observation methods. The star chart data included temporal references suggesting that the information was current rather than historical. Travel times, communication delays, and what appeared to be political or territorial boundaries were encoded using the same mathematical language established in the first transmission. We were receiving an intelligence briefing about galactic civilization from entities currently engaged in military operations within our own solar system. Most disturbing was the inclusion of Earth's solar system in the star chart data, marked with symbols that suggested classification as a protected or restricted zone. The mathematical context implied that human civilization was already known to galactic authorities and subject to policies or agreements that limited certain types of interaction. Our planet appeared to be operating under cosmic quarantine conditions we were completely unaware of. The implications for the engagement between 3L Atlas and the asteroid swarm took on new dimensions when considered against this galactic context. Rather than witnessing random interstellar conflict, we might be observing the enforcement of territorial boundaries or jurisdiction disputes between civilizations whose sphere of influence includes our solar system. Earth's role as unwilling spectator suddenly seemed less accidental and more deliberately orchestrated. Communication analysis teams worked frantically to decode additional layers of meaning embedded in the mathematical structures. Pattern recognition algorithms identified recurring sequence elements that might represent proper names, political entities, or technological classifications. The alien broadcasters were providing a compressed overview of galactic civilization designed for rapid comprehension by emerging technological species. The third transmission changed everything. Arriving 72 hours after the second message, this signal originated simultaneously from all 43 asteroid swarm members, creating a coherent wave that focused on Earth with precision that left no doubt about its intended destination. The message was brief, consisting of a single mathematical equation that described the relationship between mass, energy, and dimensional barriers in ways that suggested technologies capable of manipulating spacetime itself. Following this equation was something unprecedented, what appeared to be an ultimatum. The mathematical structure described time intervals, territorial boundaries, and consequences using symbolic logic that translated into unmistakable terms. 3L Atlas had violated galactic territorial agreements by entering our solar system without authorization. The asteroid swarm represented law enforcement rather than military attackers, and humanity had been granted a specific time period to demonstrate our understanding of the situation and our commitment to maintaining cosmic quarantine protocols. The countdown had begun. Earth had 37 hours to respond appropriately to the galactic authorities currently engaged in police operations near Mars. The nature of the appropriate response remained unclear, but the consequences of failure were described in mathematical terms that suggested the permanent isolation of our solar system from galactic civilization. As communication teams worldwide collaborated on drafting humanity's first official diplomatic response to galactic law enforcement, one fact became terrifyingly clear. We were no longer merely observers of interstellar conflict. We had become unwilling participants in a cosmic legal proceeding that could determine the future of human civilization's relationship with the galaxy beyond our small solar neighborhood. The emergency session convened at 3:20 GMT on February 11th brought together representatives from every major space agency, government and scientific institution on Earth. The hastily assembled council faced an unprecedented challenge. How does a species that has never engaged in interstellar diplomacy respond to what amounts to a cosmic traffic violation citation delivered by alien law enforcement currently operating? In our solar system, Dr. Elena Vasquez, director of the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, assumed the unenviable role of coordinating humanity's response to the galactic ultimatum. We're dealing with a situation that exists nowhere in our legal frameworks or diplomatic protocols, she explained to the assembled delegates. International law governs territorial disputes between nations, but we have no precedent for negotiating with galactic authorities who view our entire solar system as subject to jurisdiction we've never acknowledged. The mathematical analysis teams had worked through the night to decode the specific terms embedded in the alien ultimatum. The translation revealed disturbing details about Earth's status in galactic civilization. We were operating under what the aliens termed a developmental quarantine protocol that severely restricted interaction between our solar system and the broader galactic community. 3L Atlas had violated this quarantine by entering our cosmic territory without proper authorization from galactic regulatory authorities. The quarantine wasn't punitive, but protective, designed to prevent cultural contamination and technological disruption that could destabilize emerging civilizations during critical developmental phases. According to the mathematical framework provided by the asteroid swarm, humanity had been classified as a pre-contact species, requiring isolation until we achieved specific technological and social benchmarks that demonstrated readiness for galactic integration. Dr. Michael Harrison, xenosociology specialist at Cambridge University, provided disturbing context for the quarantine classification. The mathematical models suggest that galactic civilization operates according to strict protocols governing contact with developing species. These aren't arbitrary rules, but policies developed over millions of years of experience with emerging civilizations. The data implies that premature contact typically results in cultural collapse or technological catastrophe for the developing species. The asteroid swarm's ultimatum demanded acknowledgement of the quarantine violation and assurance that humanity would cooperate with the apprehension of 3L Atlas without interfering in galactic law enforcement operations. The mathematical structure suggested that our response would be evaluated not just for content, but for the sophistication of our communication methods and our understanding of galactic legal principles. Most concerning was the implicit threat embedded in the alien message. Failure to respond appropriately within the specified time frame would result in what the mathematics described as enhanced isolation protocols, a permanent quarantine that would prevent any future contact with galactic civilization and actively discourage unauthorized visits like 3L Atlas's current intrusion. Earth would become a cosmic closed zone, cut off from the galaxy indefinitely. The communication challenge involved more than translation difficulties. Human diplomatic language relies heavily on nuance, implication, and cultural context that would be meaningless to alien intelligence operating according to fundamentally different social and legal frameworks. The response needed to be mathematically precise while conveying concepts like cooperation, compliance, and peaceful intent using universal logical structures. Dr. Lisa Park, mathematical linguist with the International SETI Institute, led the team tasked with encoding humanity's response using the communication protocols established by the alien transmissions. We're essentially learning a new mathematical language in real time while crafting legal documents that could determine our species' cosmic future, she explained. Every equation must be perfect because we won't get a second chance to make a first impression on galactic law enforcement. The response draft underwent 16 complete revisions as teams of scientists, diplomats, and linguists struggled to balance compliance with dignity. The message needed to acknowledge the quarantine violation without accepting responsibility for 3L Atlas's actions, since humanity had no involvement in the interstellar visitor's decision to enter our solar system. Threading this diplomatic needle required precision that pushed human mathematical communication capabilities to their absolute limits. Military analysts raised uncomfortable questions about the long-term implications of accepting galactic authority over our solar system. If alien civilizations could unilaterally declare quarantine zones and enforce territorial restrictions through superior technology, what did this mean for human sovereignty and our future expansion into space? The asteroid swarm's demonstration of overwhelming tactical superiority made resistance impossible, but compliance might set precedents that constrained human development for centuries. The international legal community faced the challenge of incorporating galactic law into terrestrial jurisprudence frameworks that assumed human authority over local space. The alien ultimatum suggested that our solar system had been subject to external jurisdiction since before human civilization existed, calling into question every assumption about territorial sovereignty and the legal basis for space exploration programs. Public reaction to the disclosure of alien contact and galactic quarantine status ranged from panic to euphoria, as populations worldwide grappled with the revelation that humanity was already part of a larger cosmic community, operating according to rules we'd never been informed about. Religious leaders struggled to incorporate galactic civilization into theological frameworks, while philosophers debated the implications of learning that human free will might be constrained by cosmic policies beyond our control, the technical challenge of transmitting humanity's response required coordination between radio telescopes worldwide to generate sufficient signal strength for reliable reception across the vast distances to the engagement zone near Mars. The communication window was narrow. The message needed to reach the asteroid swarm within 31 hours of the original ultimatum to meet the specified deadline for response. Scientific teams prepared backup communication methods in case the primary radio transmission failed to achieve acknowledgement. Laser communication systems, radar reflection techniques, and even nuclear detonation patterns were considered as alternative ways to signal compliance with galactic authorities. The desperation of these contingency plans reflected the stakes involved in successful communication with entities whose technological capabilities dwarfed human engineering achievements. As the deadline approached, monitoring stations worldwide focused on the engagement zone near Mars, watching for any changes in the tactical situation that might indicate how the asteroid swarm was responding to 3L Atlas's continued resistance. The interstellar visitor's escape attempts had become increasingly desperate, suggesting that it understood the legal implications of its territorial violation and the consequences of capture by galactic law enforcement. The mathematical structure of humanity's prepared response included acknowledgements of the quarantine protocol, assurances of non-interference with law enforcement operations, and carefully worded requests for clarification about Earth's long-term status within galactic civilization. The message was designed to demonstrate compliance while establishing humanity as a reasonable negotiating partner worthy of future diplomatic consideration. Dr. Vasquez authorized transmission of the response message at 11:47 GMT, exactly 35 hours and 23 minutes after receipt of the original alien ultimatum. Earth's most powerful radio transmitters focused their combined output toward the asteroid swarm, broadcasting humanity's first official diplomatic communication with galactic civilization using mathematical language that represented the culmination of centuries of scientific development. The signal propagation time to Mars meant that humanity's message would require approximately 14 minutes to reach its destination, followed by an unknown processing period before any response could be expected. The waiting period became a countdown that could determine whether human civilization would face continued isolation or begin the complex process of integration into a galactic community that operated according to principles we were only beginning to understand. As astronomers worldwide maintained vigil over the engagement zone, monitoring for any sign of acknowledgement or response from the alien law enforcement operation, one question dominated every conversation among the hastily assembled diplomatic teams. Had humanity's first attempt at galactic diplomacy succeeded in demonstrating our readiness for cosmic citizenship? Or had we failed a test whose consequences would shape the future of our species for generations to come? The quarantine protocol had been revealed, and Earth's cosmic isolation was no longer a product of our solar system's remote location, but a deliberate policy imposed by galactic authorities who are now evaluating our worthiness for continued protection or enhanced restriction. The universe had suddenly become far more crowded and regulated than anyone had imagined, and humanity's place within that cosmic order remained terrifyingly uncertain. The acknowledgement arrived exactly 17 minutes and 43 seconds after Earth's transmission reached the asteroid swarm, delivered with the same mathematical precision that characterized every aspect of the alien law enforcement operation. Dr. Martinez, monitoring the Very Large Array's reception systems, watched her displays suddenly flood with coherent signal data that dwarfed the complexity of previous alien communications. The response was unlike anything we'd received before, she later reported to the emergency session still convened at the United Nations. We were looking at a data stream that contained multiple layers of mathematical information, transmitted simultaneously across 17 different frequency bands. The sheer volume of information suggested that our message had triggered the download of what could only be described as a comprehensive legal briefing. The transmission lasted 4 hours and 12 minutes, delivering what cryptanalysis teams eventually recognized as a complete overview of galactic civilization's organizational structure, territorial boundaries, legal frameworks, and enforcement protocols. The mathematical language used concepts from advanced physics and multidimensional geometry that pushed human scientific understanding to its absolute limits. Yet the information was clearly intended for comprehension by emerging technological species. Dr. Petrov's expanded cryptanalysis team, now including linguists, mathematicians, and xenobiologists from 37 countries, worked around the clock to decode the massive data download. What emerged was humanity's first comprehensive look at a galaxy-spanning civilization that operated according to principles that challenged every assumption about how advanced societies might organize themselves across interstellar distances. The galactic authority responsible for our solar system's quarantine was identified as the Territorial Maintenance Collective, a loose confederation of ancient civilizations that had assumed responsibility for managing the development of emerging species throughout a region encompassing approximately 50,000 cubic light-years of local galactic space. Earth fell within Sector 7 Alpha Prime, a designation that included 847 star systems currently under various levels of developmental monitoring and protection. Most remarkably, the data reveal that galactic civilization operated according to what could only be described as cosmic zoning laws. Different regions of space were classified according to their inhabitants' technological and social development levels, with strict protocols governing interaction between civilizations at different evolutionary stages. The quarantine protecting Earth was just one example of billions of similar restrictions designed to prevent cultural contamination and technological disruption across the galaxy. The legal framework governing 3L Atlas's territorial violation was complex beyond human jurisprudential concepts. The interstellar visitor had been classified as a developmental refugee from a star system that had recently undergone what the mathematics described as premature technological singularity, a catastrophic event where artificial intelligence development had proceeded faster than social evolution, resulting in the destruction of the originating civilization and the scattering of survivors across interstellar space. 3L Atlas wasn't simply an ancient comet or alien probe, but a survival vessel carrying the remnants of a failed civilization that had achieved interstellar travel capability before developing the social maturity necessary to use such technology responsibly. Its entry into our quarantined solar system represented a desperate attempt to find refuge in protected space, but also violated the territorial boundaries designed to prevent exactly this type of contamination. The asteroid swarm's response to humanity's diplomatic message included what could only be interpreted as cautious approval of our communication attempt. The mathematical structures indicated that Earth civilizations had demonstrated preliminary compliance indicators and nascent diplomatic sophistication, sufficient to warrant consideration for modified quarantine status rather than enhanced isolation protocols. This modified status would allow limited communication with galactic authorities while maintaining the fundamental restrictions on technological transfer and cultural contact that protected developing civilizations from destabilizing influences. Humanity had passed the first test of cosmic citizenship, but remained under strict observation to determine our readiness for eventual integration into galactic society. The data download included disturbing statistics about civilizations that had failed similar evaluation processes. Of the 127 species that had encountered galactic law enforcement during territorial violations over the past million years, only 23 had achieved successful integration into galactic civilization. The remainder had been placed under permanent quarantine or had suffered complete cultural collapse when exposed to advanced technologies before achieving appropriate social development. Dr. Harrison's analysis of the xenosociological data revealed patterns that challenged optimistic assumptions about the prevalence of successful civilizations in the galaxy. The mathematics suggest that achieving stable, sustainable technological civilization is extraordinarily difficult, he explained to the assembled diplomatic teams. Most species either destroy themselves during early technological development or become dependent on advanced civilizations in ways that prevent independent growth. The quarantine protocols exist because successful civilizations are too valuable to risk losing to preventable catastrophes. The alien response also included specific instructions for monitoring the ongoing law enforcement operation against 3L, Atlas. Humanity had been granted observer status for the proceedings, allowing us to witness galactic justice in action while learning about the legal principles that governed interstellar territorial disputes. This educational opportunity came with strict requirements for non-interference and complete documentation of our observations for later evaluation by galactic authorities. The mathematical briefing described the specific charges against 3L Atlas in terms that revealed the complexity of galactic law enforcement. The survival vessel faced accusations of unauthorized territorial penetration, failure to request refugee status through proper channels, and endangerment of protected species through contamination risk. The penalties range from temporary detention and relocation to permanent exile in the galactic void, depending on the assessment of threat level and rehabilitation potential. Most disturbing was the revelation that 3L Atlas's desperate escape attempts might actually be making its legal situation worse. Each aggressive maneuver was being recorded as evidence of persistent territorial violation and resistance to lawful enforcement authority. The survivor vessel's attempts to break free from containment were being interpreted as criminal behavior rather than legitimate self-defense, suggesting fundamental differences between human and galactic concepts of legal rights and due process. The communication also addressed humanity's long-term development prospects within the galactic framework. Earth civilizations had been classified as showing moderate advancement potential, with concerning military tendencies but promising scientific capabilities. Our evaluation period would extend for approximately 500 Earth years, during which galactic authorities would monitor our technological and social progress while providing limited guidance through mathematical communications. The criteria for successful quarantine graduation included achievement of sustainable energy systems, elimination of large-scale military conflicts, development of interplanetary colonization capabilities, and demonstration of responsible artificial intelligence management. Humanity currently met none of these benchmarks, but our response to the first contact situation had been encouraging enough to warrant continued developmental support rather than enhanced isolation. Dr. Vasquez faced the unprecedented challenge of briefing world leaders about humanity's new status as galactic probationary citizens under alien supervision. "We're no longer alone in the universe, but we're also no longer autonomous," she explained to the emergency session. "Our development is being guided according to principles we're only beginning to understand, by civilizations whose capabilities make our most advanced technologies look like stone tools." The alien communication concluded with specific instructions for establishing an ongoing diplomatic channel between Earth and the Territorial Maintenance Collective. A permanent monitoring station would be established in the outer solar system to observe human development and provide guidance when appropriate. This installation would serve as humanity's embassy to galactic civilization, marking our first step toward eventual integration into a cosmic community that spanned thousands of inhabited worlds. Amateur astronomers worldwide reported new objects appearing in telescopic observations of the outer solar system, confirming that galactic authorities were already implementing the monitoring protocols described in their communication. The Watchers had arrived, and humanity's cosmic childhood was officially ending under the supervision of civilizations that had achieved maturity we could barely imagine. As analysis teams continued decoding the massive data download and diplomatic representatives struggled to develop frameworks for ongoing communication with galactic authorities, one fact became clear. The engagement near Mars had transformed from a simple law enforcement operation into humanity's graduation ceremony from cosmic isolation. Whether we would pass or fail the extended examination remained to be seen, But our status as the galaxy's newest probationary citizens was now official. The response from the void had opened channels of communication that would reshape human civilization's trajectory for centuries to come. Assuming we proved worthy of the opportunity we'd been granted to join a galactic community that operated according to principles we were only beginning to comprehend. The situation near Mars took a dramatic turn on February 14th, when 3L Atlas began executing what can only be described as a desperate final escape attempt. Unlike the methodical probing attacks that had characterized its previous efforts, this maneuver involved a series of rapid course changes that pushed the refugee vessel's exotic propulsion system to its apparent operational limits. Dr. Webb's tactical analysis team, now operating around the clock with support from military strategists worldwide, identified the new pattern as fundamentally different from 3L Atlas's earlier behavior. We're seeing acceleration profiles that exceed anything the vessel demonstrated during its initial solar system passage, he reported during the emergency briefing session. Whatever energy reserves enable its impossible maneuvering capabilities are being depleted at rates that suggest this is truly a last-ditch effort. The mathematical precision that had characterized the engagement suddenly gave way to chaotic motion, patterns that suggested either desperation or system failure aboard the refugee vessel. 3L Atlas began executing seemingly random direction changes at intervals that defied prediction, making course corrections so rapid and violent that they should have torn apart any physical structure not held together by exotic matter or unknown technological principles. Spectroscopic analysis during these extreme maneuvers revealed emission lines from materials that didn't appear in any previous observations of the vessel. The intense acceleration phases were triggering the breakdown of whatever exotic substances enabled 3L Atlas's impossible propulsion capabilities, creating a cascade of unknown chemical reactions that painted vivid auroras across the vessel's hull as it literally began consuming itself in its desperate bid for freedom. The asteroid swarm's response to this escalation demonstrated the collective intelligence that had made their containment operation so effective. Rather than simply tightening their formation to counter the random escape attempts, the 43 enforcement vessels began executing a complex three-dimensional maneuver that gradually herded 3L Atlas toward what appeared to be a predetermined capture zone. Each random course change by the refugee vessel was anticipated and countered by swarm movements that seemed to predict 3L Atlas's trajectory modifications before they occurred. The mathematical models describing these predictive maneuvers suggested either faster-than-light communication between swarm members or collective consciousness that enabled instantaneous tactical coordination across millions of kilometers of space. Dr. Chen's observation teams documented the most remarkable display of coordinated space maneuvering ever witnessed by human science. The asteroid swarm was executing a capture technique that involved using gravitational interactions and precision timing to gradually reduce 3L Atlas's available maneuvering space without triggering the catastrophic collisions that might destroy the refugee vessel or its unknown occupants. We're watching the application of physics principles that we're only beginning to understand, Dr. Chen explained to the assembled international observers. The swarm is using microgravitational effects, electromagnetic field manipulation, and what appears to be controlled spacetime distortion to create an inescapable capture matrix. It's like watching a fisherman use an invisible net made of pure mathematics. The energy expenditure required for these impossible maneuvers was taking its toll on 3L Atlas. Thermal imaging showed the vessel's surface temperature climbing steadily as internal systems overloaded under the strain of continuous maximum acceleration. Bright spots appeared and faded across the hull, suggesting that critical components were failing under the extreme operational demands. Most concerning were the debris clouds that began trailing behind 3L Atlas during its more violent course changes. High-resolution imaging revealed that the refugee vessel was literally shedding pieces of itself as the structural stresses exceeded the bonding strength of its exotic construction materials. These fragments followed ballistic trajectories that posed no threat to Earth or any other body in the solar system. but their composition analysis revealed technological sophistication that dwarfed human engineering capabilities. Each piece of debris carried information about the civilization that had created 3L Atlas. Spectroscopic analysis of the fragments revealed manufacturing techniques that involved atomic-level precision assembly, exotic alloys that shouldn't exist according to current materials science, and energy storage systems that operated according to principles beyond human theoretical frameworks. The alien law enforcement response included what appeared to be debris recovery operations, with individual swarm members briefly breaking formation to collect the larger fragments shed by 3L Atlas during its escape attempts. This attention to evidence preservation suggested that the refugee vessel's breakdown was providing valuable intelligence about the failed civilization that had created it. Dr. Harrison's xenobiological analysis team faced the sobering possibility that they were witnessing the final moments of an entire species' technological heritage. If 3L Atlas represented the last surviving remnant of a civilization that had achieved interstellar travel before destroying itself through premature technological development, its capture or destruction would mark the complete extinction of potentially millions of years of cultural and scientific evolution. The mathematical communications from the asteroid swarm during this crisis phase took on an urgency that human translators struggled to interpret. The alien law enforcement was broadcasting what appeared to be repeated warnings or demands, using increasingly complex mathematical structures that suggested either frustration with 3L Atlas's resistance or concern about the refugee vessel's deteriorating condition. These communications included what cryptanalysis teams interpreted as offers of negotiated surrender, with mathematical terms that described humane detention conditions and possible rehabilitation programs for developmental refugees. The alien authorities were apparently trying to convince 3L Atlas that compliance would be more beneficial than continued resistance, but the refugee vessel showed no signs of accepting these overtures. The final phase of the engagement began when 3L Atlas executed a maneuver that defied every principle of physics that human science considered inviolable. The vessel suddenly accelerated to velocities that approached a significant fraction of light speed, creating relativistic effects that distorted the space around it and generated gravitational waves detectable by Earth's most sensitive instruments. This impossible acceleration lasted only 17 seconds before the vessel's exotic propulsion system suffered what could only be described as catastrophic failure. 3L Atlas emerged from the relativistic distortion field moving at conventional spacecraft velocities, but its hull showed clear signs of severe structural damage and its characteristic emission signatures had changed dramatically. The asteroid swarm's response to this desperate escape attempt was swift and decisive. Rather than allowing 3L Atlas to continue its self-destructive resistance, the enforcement vessels executed a coordinated maneuver that enveloped the damaged refugee vessel in what appeared to be a containment field generated through collective action by all 43 swarm members simultaneously. The mathematics describing this containment field involved concepts from theoretical physics that human scientists were only beginning to explore. The swarm had created a localized spacetime distortion that effectively isolated 3L Atlas from the normal flow of causality, trapping it in a temporal bubble where further escape attempts became physically impossible. Dr. Martinez's radio telescope arrays detected a final transmission from 3L Atlas as the containment field activated. The signal was brief and appeared to be directed toward Earth rather than the alien law enforcement vessels. The mathematical structure was simpler than the complex communications humanity had received from the asteroid swarm, suggesting either damaged systems or deliberately simplified encoding for primitive recipients. The message consisted of a single equation that described the relationship between consciousness, technology, and survival in terms that pushed human philosophical understanding to its limits. 3L Atlas was apparently sharing a final warning about the dangers of achieving advanced capabilities without corresponding wisdom, delivered to the one species in the local galactic region that might still have time to learn from its civilization's tragic mistakes. As the containment field stabilized and 3L Atlas's struggles ceased, the engagement near Mars entered what appeared to be its final phase. The refugee vessel had been captured intact, its technology and cultural information preserved for analysis by galactic authorities who possessed the wisdom to study such materials safely. The law enforcement operation had succeeded without destroying the last remnant of a failed civilization, demonstrating the sophisticated approach that galactic society took toward even criminal violations of territorial boundaries. The aftermath would reveal whether humanity had learned anything from witnessing this cosmic tragedy, and whether our species possessed the wisdom necessary to avoid repeating the mistakes that had led to 3L Atlas's desperate flight through the darkness between stars. The containment field surrounding 3L Atlas represented technology so advanced that human physicists struggled to develop theoretical frameworks capable of describing its operation. Dr. Elizabeth Reyes, quantum field specialist at CERN, led an international team attempting to analyze the exotic physics displayed by the asteroid swarm's collective restraint system. We're observing controlled manipulation of space-time geometry on a scale that requires energy expenditures approaching stellar output levels, Dr. Reyes explained during the emergency scientific briefing. Yet the asteroid swarm shows no thermal signatures or radiation emissions that would indicate conventional power generation. They're operating according to principles that make our most advanced theories look like elementary arithmetic. The containment field appeared as a shimmering distortion in space surrounding 3L Atlas, visible only through its gravitational, lensing effects on background starlight and the subtle rainbow patterns it created when solar radiation passed through its boundaries. Within this temporal prison, the refugee vessel hung motionless, its hull darkened and its exotic emission signatures reduced to barely detectable background radiation. Attempts to analyze the field's properties through remote sensing revealed characteristics that challenged fundamental assumptions about the relationship between matter, energy, and consciousness. The containment appeared to be selectively permeable, allowing certain types of radiation to pass through, while blocking others according to criteria that seemed to involve the observer's intent rather than purely physical properties. Dr. Chen's observation teams discovered that radio telescopes could detect signals from 3L Atlas only when operated by personnel who'd been briefed about the refugee vessel's tragic history. Astronomers who approached the containment field as a purely technical phenomenon received no data, while those who understood the cultural and philosophical implications of the captured civilization could monitor the vessel's condition with remarkable clarity. This consciousness-dependent selectivity suggested that the asteroid swarm's technology operated according to principles that incorporated awareness, intention, and understanding as fundamental forces comparable to gravity or electromagnetism. The containment field wasn't simply a physical barrier, but a consciousness-responsive system that evaluated the worthiness of observers before granting access to information about its prisoner. The mathematical communications from the asteroid swarm during the containment phase took on an educational character that suggested the alien law enforcement was using this opportunity to provide humanity with advanced lessons in galactic jurisprudence and rehabilitation technology. The equations described legal principles governing the treatment of developmental refugees and the sophisticated methods used to preserve failed civilizations for historical study. Dr. Petrov's expanded cryptanalysis team decoded detailed explanations of the containment field's operation, revealing that it functioned as both prison and protective environment. 3L Atlas was being held in a state of temporal suspension that prevented further deterioration of its systems while allowing galactic authorities to safely analyze the technological and cultural information it contained. The refugee vessel's occupants, if any survived, were being maintained in a condition that the alien mathematics described as cognitive suspension with memory preservation. This appeared to be a humane form of imprisonment that prevented Psychological trauma, while allowing for potential rehabilitation and reintegration into galactic society, if appropriate host civilizations could be identified. Most remarkably, the containment system was designed to learn from its prisoner. The field continuously analyzed 3L Atlas's technological systems, cultural databases, and historical records, extracting information that would be added to Galactic Civilization's comprehensive database of failed development paths. The refugee vessel's tragic experience would serve as a warning and educational resource for future emerging civilizations. The asteroid swarm began a gradual repositioning maneuver that would transport the contained 3L Atlas toward the outer solar system, away from the inner planets where its exotic technology might pose contamination risks to Earth's developing civilization. This relocation process demonstrated the sophisticated logistical capabilities that enabled galactic law enforcement to operate across vast interstellar distances. Dr. Webb's tactical analysis revealed that the transport formation involved complex orbital mechanics that minimized gravitational perturbations on the solar system's natural celestial bodies. The alien authorities were taking extraordinary care to avoid disrupting the delicate gravitational balance that maintained Earth's climate stability and orbital characteristics. Even criminal law enforcement operations were conducted with consideration for the protected species under galactic jurisdiction. The mathematical briefings continued throughout the transport phase, providing humanity with unprecedented insights into the scale and complexity of galactic civilization. The Territorial Maintenance Collective operated across dozens of sectors similar to our local region, managing the development of thousands of emerging species while maintaining the cultural and technological integrity of established civilizations. The statistics were sobering. Of the 847 star systems under developmental monitoring in Sector 7 Alpha Prime, only 23 contained species that had successfully achieved stable technological civilization without external intervention. The remainder were either still in pre-technological phases or had suffered various forms of developmental failure that required protective quarantine or rehabilitation assistance. 3L Atlas's parent civilization was classified as a Type 7 developmental failure, characterized by achieving interstellar travel capabilities before developing the social maturity necessary to manage such technology responsibly. The mathematical descriptions suggested that this particular failure mode was relatively common, affecting approximately 15% of species that achieved advanced technology without appropriate cultural evolution. The rehabilitation prospects for 3L Atlas's surviving elements were described in terms that revealed the compassionate approach taken by galactic authorities toward developmental failures. Rather than simple punishment, the containment and analysis process was designed to extract valuable lessons while providing opportunities for cultural remnants to contribute to the broader galactic community in constructive ways. Dr. Harrison's xenobiological analysis team studied the cultural preservation techniques described in the alien communications, marveling at the sophisticated methods used to maintain the essence of failed civilizations while preventing their destructive elements from spreading to other developing species. The process balanced historical preservation with public safety in ways that human jurisprudence was only beginning to consider. The alien mathematics included detailed case studies of successful rehabilitation programs that had transformed refugees from failed civilizations into valuable contributors to galactic society. These examples provided hope that 3L Atlas's tragic journey might eventually lead to positive outcomes, despite the destruction of its parent civilization and the violation of territorial boundaries that had necessitated its capture. As the transport formation approached the outer solar system boundary, the asteroid swarm transmitted what appeared to be concluding remarks about the law enforcement operation and its educational value for humanity's development. The mathematical structures expressed satisfaction with Earth's diplomatic response and indicated that our species had demonstrated sufficient maturity to warrant continued developmental support rather than enhanced isolation. The alien authorities acknowledged that witnessing the capture and containment of 3L Atlas had provided humanity with valuable lessons about the dangers of premature technological advancement and the importance of balancing scientific progress with social wisdom. These observations would be incorporated into our evaluation criteria for eventual graduation from quarantine status. Most significantly, the asteroid swarm indicated that humanity's compassionate response to 3L Atlas's plight had been noted favourably by galactic authorities. Our species had demonstrated empathy for a failed civilization and concern for the welfare of developmental refugees, suggesting emotional and ethical maturity that complemented our growing scientific capabilities. The mathematical communications concluded with instructions for maintaining the diplomatic channel established during the crisis, along with schedules for periodic educational transmissions that would guide humanity's development toward eventual galactic citizenship. The monitoring station being established in the outer solar system would serve as a permanent embassy, marking our transition from isolated species to probationary members of galactic civilization. As the asteroid swarm prepared to depart our solar system with its captured prisoner, carrying 3L Atlas toward rehabilitation facilities that existed somewhere in the vast network of galactic civilization, humanity faced the sobering realization that we had witnessed both cosmic justice and cosmic tragedy in the same unprecedented event. The prisoners of space were departing, but the lessons of their capture would remain with humanity as we continued our own precarious journey toward technological maturity, hoping to avoid the developmental failures that had led to 3L Atlas's desperate flight and ultimate containment in the cold mathematics of galactic law. The first signs of permanent galactic presence in our solar system appeared on February 18th, when deep space monitoring stations detected new objects materializing in the outer reaches beyond Neptune's orbit. Unlike the dramatic arrival of the asteroid swarm, these new entities emerged gradually from what appeared to be localized spacetime distortions that made conventional detection impossible until the objects chose to reveal themselves. Dr. Amanda Foster, director of the Outer System Survey Project, was reviewing routine telemetry data when her instruments registered gravitational anomalies that shouldn't exist in the supposedly empty regions between planetary orbits. The signatures were subtle at first, she explained to the hastily convened International Monitoring Committee. We were seeing gravitational lensing effects and minor perturbations in background radiation that suggested the presence of massive objects, but visual confirmation remained impossible until they began active operations. The monitoring stations materialized as geometric structures that defied conventional architectural principles. Each installation appeared as a complex three-dimensional lattice, constructed from materials that reflected light in ways that created optical illusions, making precise size and distance measurements nearly impossible. The structures seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time, visible from some angles while remaining completely transparent from others. Spectroscopic analysis revealed construction materials that exhibited properties unknown to human material science. The monitoring stations appeared to be built from substances that could selectively interact with different forms of radiation, while remaining completely inert to gravitational influences from nearby planetary bodies. These exotic materials enable the structures to maintain stable positions in space, without requiring conventional orbital mechanics or propulsion systems. The mathematical communications from the newly arrived monitoring network confirmed their identity as the permanent embassy facilities described in earlier alien transmissions. The installations were operated by the Territorial Maintenance Collective and would serve as humanity's primary interface with galactic civilization throughout our extended evaluation period. Each station specialized in monitoring different aspects of human development, from technological progress to social evolution. Dr. Chen's expanded observation teams identified 7 distinct monitoring stations distributed throughout the outer solar system, each positioned to provide optimal surveillance coverage of human activities while remaining safely distant from our developing civilization. The strategic placement demonstrated the sophisticated approach that galactic authorities took toward managing emerging species without causing cultural disruption through visible alien presence. The monitoring stations began transmitting educational content within hours of their materialization, delivering advanced mathematical and scientific concepts designed to guide humanity's development along paths that had proven successful for other emerging civilizations. These transmissions were carefully calibrated to provide information that would accelerate human progress without creating the technological dependencies that had led to developmental failures in other species. Dr. Petrov's cryptanalysis teams worked around the clock to decode the educational transmissions, discovering that the alien authorities were providing humanity with access to scientific knowledge that was centuries ahead of our current capabilities. The information included solutions to fundamental physics problems, advanced mathematical theorems, and technological concepts that could revolutionize human civilization if properly understood and implemented. Most remarkably, the educational content was presented in a format that required active engagement and independent discovery, rather than passive absorption. The alien teachers were providing clues and guidance that led human scientists toward breakthrough insights, but required our species to develop the understanding independently. This approach prevented the technological dependency that had characterized many failed civilizations. The monitoring stations also began detailed surveillance of human military activities, tracking weapon deployments, conflict zones, and defense spending with precision that revealed the comprehensive nature of galactic observation capabilities. The alien authorities were clearly concerned about humanity's tendency toward violence, and were monitoring our progress toward peaceful resolution of international disputes. Dr. Harrison's xenobiological analysis revealed that the monitoring criteria focused heavily on social and psychological development rather than purely technological advancement. The galactic authorities were evaluating humanity's emotional maturity, cooperative capabilities, and ethical sophistication as primary factors in determining our readiness for galactic citizenship. Technical knowledge was considered secondary to wisdom and social stability. The communications from the monitoring network included detailed feedback about humanity's response to the 3L Atlas incident, with mathematical assessments of our diplomatic sophistication, empathetic responses, and decision-making processes during the crisis. The evaluation was generally positive, but highlighted areas where human civilization needed improvement before advancing to the next phase of galactic integration. Military analysts studying the monitoring station deployments identified surveillance capabilities that made human defense systems effectively transparent to galactic observation. The alien installations could apparently detect and analyze any technological development on Earth in real time, making it impossible for human civilizations to develop weapons or technologies that might pose threats to galactic security without immediate detection. This comprehensive surveillance raised uncomfortable questions about human autonomy and privacy during the evaluation period. Galactic authorities possessed the capability to monitor individual conversations, technological experiments, and political decisions with precision that eliminated any possibility of hiding potentially dangerous developments from their oversight. Humanity was operating under constant observation that made traditional concepts of national security obsolete. The educational transmissions included warnings about specific technological paths that had led to civilization collapse in other species, artificial intelligence development, genetic modification programs, and exotic physics research all carried risks that required careful management, according to protocols developed through millions of years of galactic experience with emerging civilizations. Dr. Reyes's physics teams studied the warnings about exotic technology research with particular concern, recognizing that humanity was approaching several of the dangerous threshold technologies identified by galactic authorities. Our species was apparently closer to potential self-destruction than most humans realized, making the alien guidance both valuable and urgently necessary for survival. The monitoring stations demonstrated their intervention capabilities on February 23rd when they collectively generated a localized electromagnetic pulse that disabled a classified military satellite conducting unauthorized exotic matter experiments. The intervention was precisely calibrated to destroy only the dangerous technology while leaving all other satellite systems unaffected, demonstrating the surgical precision available to galactic law enforcement. The incident was accompanied by mathematical communications explaining that humanity had inadvertently approached one of the threshold technologies that required immediate intervention to prevent potential cascade failures. The alien authorities had prevented a technological accident that could have triggered space-time instabilities affecting the entire inner solar system. This demonstration of both surveillance and intervention capabilities made clear that humanity's technological development was now subject to active management by galactic authorities. We retained autonomy for safe research and development, but any exploration of potentially dangerous technologies would be immediately detected and prevented through methods that human science couldn't counter or resist. The psychological impact on the global scientific community was profound, as researchers grappled with the realization that their work was being continuously monitored by alien intelligence, whose technological capabilities made resistance impossible. Some scientists viewed the oversight as protective guidance, while others saw it as an intolerable constraint on human scientific freedom and autonomy. International space agencies began developing new protocols for research and development that incorporated awareness of galactic oversight into project planning and risk assessment procedures. The traditional model of unrestricted scientific exploration had been replaced by a managed development framework that balanced human curiosity with galactic safety requirements. Amateur astronomers worldwide reported increasing numbers of monitoring station sightings as the alien installations became more visible to terrestrial observation. The structures appeared as faint geometric patterns against the stellar background, occasionally producing brief flashes of light when their exotic materials interacted with solar radiation or cosmic rays. The establishment of permanent galactic presence in our solar system marked humanity's transition from isolated species to actively managed developing civilization. The Watchers had arrived, and their presence would shape every aspect of human development for the foreseeable future, guiding our species toward eventual galactic citizenship, while protecting both humanity and the broader galactic community from the dangers of premature technological advancement. As monitoring station activities settled into routine surveillance and educational transmission patterns, one question dominated discussions among world leaders, scientists, and philosophers. How would humanity adapt to permanent alien oversight, and would we ultimately view our galactic supervisors as protectors, teachers, or jailers in the cosmic prison of our own solar system? The psychological transformation of human civilization under permanent galactic surveillance proved more profound than any technological advancement in recorded history. Within weeks of the monitoring station's establishment, every aspect of human society began adapting to the reality of constant alien observation, creating social and political changes that rippled through governments, institutions, and individual consciousness worldwide. Dr. Sarah Kellerman, professor of social psychology at Stanford University, led the first comprehensive study of humanity's collective response to confirmed alien oversight. We're witnessing the most rapid paradigm shift in human cultural evolution, she explained during the quarterly assessment briefing. The knowledge that advanced alien intelligence continuously monitors our behavior is fundamentally altering how people think about privacy, autonomy, national sovereignty, and individual agency. The immediate impact on global military activities was dramatic and unprecedented. Defense spending decreased by an average of 23% across all major nations within the first month of confirmed galactic surveillance, as military planners recognized the futility of maintaining weapon systems that alien technology could disable at will. The intervention that destroyed the classified satellite had demonstrated capabilities that made traditional concepts of military deterrence obsolete. International conflicts that had persisted for decades began moving toward resolution with surprising speed. Driven by the sobering realization that galactic authorities were evaluating humanity's progress toward peaceful cooperation as a primary criterion for eventual citizenship, the mathematical communications had made clear that species demonstrating persistent violent tendencies faced enhanced isolation rather than integration into galactic civilization. Religious institutions worldwide struggled to incorporate the reality of galactic civilization into theological frameworks that had assumed human centrality and cosmic purpose. Some denominations embraced the alien presence as confirmation of divine complexity, while others viewed the oversight as a test of faith that required maintaining traditional beliefs despite overwhelming evidence of superior alien intelligence. Dr. Marcus Webb, now serving as director of the International Galactic Affairs Coordination Office, documented the emergence of entirely new political structures designed to manage humanity's relationship with our alien supervisors. Traditional concepts of national sovereignty became complicated when galactic law superseded terrestrial jurisdiction on matters affecting cosmic security or developmental protocols. The educational transmissions from the monitoring stations created an unprecedented renaissance in human scientific understanding, but also generated social tensions between populations with access to alien-guided knowledge and those restricted to conventional education systems. Governments struggled to balance the democratization of advanced information with the need to prevent technological developments that might trigger galactic intervention. Dr. Chen's expanded observation teams noted significant changes in human behavior patterns that suggested unconscious adaptation to constant surveillance. Crime rates decreased in urban areas, while cooperative behaviors and charitable activities increased markedly. The knowledge that alien intelligence was evaluating human social development appeared to activate latent ethical instincts in populations worldwide. The economic implications of galactic oversight proved equally transformative. Stock markets initially crashed when investors realized that alien intervention could invalidate any technological investment deemed dangerous by galactic authorities. However, new economic sectors emerged around the interpretation and application of alien educational transmissions, creating entirely novel industries focused on galactic compliance and developmental optimization. Scientific institutions faced the complex challenge of maintaining research independence while operating under alien oversight that could terminate any project deemed potentially hazardous. The freedom to pursue knowledge without constraint, a cornerstone of scientific methodology, had been replaced by guided development that balanced human curiosity with galactic safety requirements. Dr. Harrison's xenobiological research team studied the long-term psychological effects of living under benevolent but absolute alien authority. Early data suggested that human populations were adapting to the oversight through mechanisms similar to those observed in other social species when integrated into larger hierarchical structures. The process appeared to be generating both increased cooperation and subtle forms of learned helplessness. The monitoring stations began providing personalized guidance to individual researchers and institutions, delivering mathematical communications tailored to specific projects and disciplines. This individualized attention suggested that galactic authorities possessed detailed knowledge of human capabilities and were actively shaping the direction of scientific development to optimize our species' progress toward cosmic citizenship. Amateur astronomers reported increasing sophistication in the monitoring station's visible activities, with the installations displaying complex light patterns and geometric reconfigurations that appeared to correlate with terrestrial events. The alien structures were apparently responsive to human activities in real time, suggesting computational and analytical capabilities that dwarfed terrestrial supercomputing systems. The legal implications of galactic oversight created unprecedented challenges for international jurisprudence. Courts worldwide grappled with cases involving technology that had been disabled by alien intervention. intellectual property derived from galactic educational transmissions, and jurisdictional disputes between terrestrial and cosmic law. Entirely new legal frameworks were required to address humanity's status as a supervised developing civilization. Public opinion surveys revealed fascinating variations in how different populations perceived their alien supervisors. Younger demographics tended to view the galactic authorities as protective teachers, while older populations often expressed concerns about loss of human autonomy and cultural integrity. These generational differences suggested that full adaptation to galactic oversight might require decades or centuries to complete. The monitoring stations demonstrated increasing subtlety in their intervention capabilities, preventing potentially dangerous experiments through methods that often appear to be equipment failures or natural accidents rather than obvious alien interference. This approach minimized cultural disruption while maintaining absolute control over humanity's technological development trajectory. Dr. Petrov's cryptanalysis teams identified patterns in the educational transmissions that suggested the alien authorities were conducting psychological experiments alongside their technological guidance. The mathematical structures included subliminal elements designed to influence human thinking patterns in ways that promoted cooperation, ethical reasoning, and long-term planning capabilities. International space agencies began developing new mission protocols that incorporated galactic oversight into exploration and research planning. The traditional model of competitive national space programs was being replaced by coordinated international efforts that aligned with alien-approved development pathways. Humanity's expansion into space would proceed according to galactic standards rather than terrestrial ambitions. The transformation of human education systems accelerated as institutions worldwide incorporated alien-derived knowledge into curricula, while struggling to maintain cultural identity and independent thinking capabilities. The balance between accepting galactic guidance and preserving human intellectual autonomy became a central challenge for educators and policymakers. Social media platforms experienced fundamental changes as populations became aware that their communications were subject to alien analysis. Privacy concerns took on new dimensions when surveillance capabilities exceeded anything terrestrial governments could deploy. While the knowledge that advanced intelligence was monitoring human discourse appeared to improve the quality of online interactions, the psychological adaptation to galactic oversight revealed both humanity's remarkable flexibility and our deep-seated needs for autonomy and self-determination. As months passed under alien supervision, the question was no longer whether humanity could adapt to permanent oversight, but whether the species that emerged from this process would still recognize itself as fundamentally human. The Watchers had established themselves as permanent fixtures in humanity's future, and their influence was reshaping human civilization in ways that would determine whether our species ultimately achieved the wisdom necessary for galactic citizenship or remained forever confined to our solar system under protective custody that felt increasingly indistinguishable from sophisticated imprisonment. 6 months after the establishment of galactic monitoring stations, a shadow movement began emerging in the deepest recesses of human society. The Terrestrial Autonomy Coalition, as it came to be known, represented the first organized resistance to alien oversight, drawing members from military veterans, libertarian activists, and scientists who viewed galactic supervision as an existential threat to human independence and cultural integrity. Colonel James Mitchell, former director of the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, became an unofficial spokesman for the resistance movement, despite the obvious futility of opposing alien technology that could disable any human weapons system at will. The question isn't whether we can fight them, he explained during a clandestine meeting in an abandoned subway tunnel beneath New York City. The question is whether we remain human under their guidance, or become something else entirely. The resistance faced challenges that no underground movement in human history had encountered. Traditional concepts of operational security became meaningless when alien monitoring capabilities could apparently detect any organized activity in real time. Secret communications, hidden weapons, caches, and covert meeting locations were all transparent to surveillance systems that operated according to principles beyond human technological comprehension. Dr. Rebecca Torres, former NSA cryptography specialist, led efforts to develop communication methods that might evade galactic detection systems. Her team experimented with everything from quantum entanglement protocols to primitive smoke signal codes, searching for any means of information transfer that alien technology might overlook or consider too insignificant to monitor. We're operating under the assumption that their surveillance systems are calibrated to detect organized threats rather than individual expressions of dissent, Dr. Torres explained to the small group of technical specialists who had joined the resistance despite knowing their activities were probably being monitored. If we can find ways to communicate that appear random or meaningless, we might be able to coordinate limited activities below their detection thresholds. The resistance movement attracted diverse membership united only by shared concern about humanity's loss of autonomy under alien supervision. Religious fundamentalists who viewed the galactic presence as demonic influence worked alongside secular humanists who opposed any external control over human development. Academic philosophers debated resistance ethics with former intelligence operatives who possessed practical experience in asymmetric warfare. Dr. Elena Martinez, professor of ethics at Harvard University, provided intellectual framework for the resistance arguments against alien oversight. The question of benevolent dictatorship versus autonomous development goes to the heart of what it means to be human, she argued during one of the movement's irregular philosophical discussions. Even if galactic guidance leads to better outcomes, the process of achieving those outcomes through our own choices and mistakes is fundamental to human dignity and psychological development. The practical challenges of resistance activities proved almost insurmountable given the technological disparity between human and alien capabilities. Every attempt to develop weapons or technology that might pose even minimal threats to galactic installations resulted in immediate intervention that disabled the equipment while leaving clear evidence of alien surveillance. The monitoring stations appeared to be analyzing human intentions as well as actions. Psychological operations became the resistance movement's primary focus, since direct action remained impossible under comprehensive alien surveillance. Underground publications, graffiti campaigns, and word-of-mouth networks spread arguments against accepting galactic authority, hoping to maintain human cultural resistance even if physical opposition remained futile. The movement's most sophisticated operation involved attempts to decode the alien educational transmissions independently, searching for hidden agenda or manipulation techniques that might reveal the true intentions behind galactic guidance. Dr. Torres assembled a team of linguists, mathematicians, and computer scientists to analyze the alien communications for subliminal elements or psychological conditioning programs. The mathematical structures are incredibly sophisticated, Dr. Torres reported during a resistance leadership meeting held in an abandoned mineshaft in Montana. We've identified patterns that appear designed to influence human thinking in subtle ways, promoting cooperation and long-term planning, while suppressing individualistic and competitive instincts. Whether this represents beneficial guidance or sophisticated brainwashing depends on your perspective about human nature and autonomous development. Government infiltration of the resistance movement proved surprisingly difficult for traditional law enforcement agencies, since alien monitoring capabilities made conventional intelligence operations obsolete. Intelligence services worldwide found themselves in the bizarre position of being unable to penetrate domestic resistance groups because their own surveillance methods were primitive compared to alien technology that revealed everything to galactic authorities. The philosophical divide within the resistance movement reflected broader tensions in human society under alien oversight. Pragmatic factions argued for accommodation and gradual negotiation toward greater autonomy, while idealistic elements demanded complete rejection of galactic authority regardless of consequences. These internal debates often became more heated than discussions about tactics for opposing alien supervision. amateur radio operators within the resistance network discovered that certain communication frequencies appeared to experience reduced alien monitoring, possibly due to interference from natural astronomical phenomena or limitations in galactic surveillance technology. These brief windows of reduced oversight allowed resistance cells to coordinate limited activities, though the duration and reliability of such communication opportunities remained unpredictable. The resistance movement faced constant moral questioning about whether opposition to benevolent alien guidance represented legitimate defense of human autonomy or selfish rejection of wisdom that could benefit all humanity. Many potential members wrestled with the ethical implications of resisting supervision that was demonstrably improving human civilization through reduced conflicts, technological advancement, and social cooperation. International intelligence agencies began informal cooperation with resistance elements, not to support active opposition to alien authority, but to maintain human capabilities for independent action should galactic supervision ever be withdrawn or prove less benevolent than currently appeared. These contingency preparations represented insurance policies rather than active rebellion against alien oversight. The monitoring stations demonstrated awareness of resistance activities through subtle changes in their educational transmissions that addressed human concerns about autonomy and self-determination. The alien authorities appeared to view resistance as a natural and potentially healthy response to external guidance, provided it remained within bounds that didn't threaten galactic security or human development progress. Dr. Harrison's xenobiological research suggested that resistance movements might actually serve beneficial functions in humanity's development under alien guidance, providing outlets for individualistic instincts while generating feedback that helped galactic authorities calibrate their supervision methods. The resistance could represent a form of controlled opposition that served both human psychological needs and alien administrative purposes. Underground networks began documenting changes in human behavior and culture under alien influence, creating records that might preserve aspects of pre-contact humanity for future generations. These cultural preservation efforts reflected concerns that galactic guidance, however beneficial, might fundamentally alter human nature in ways that eliminated essential characteristics of our species. The resistance movement's greatest challenge lay not in opposing alien technology or authority, but in defining what aspects of humanity were worth preserving at the cost of potentially beneficial guidance. As months passed under galactic supervision, even dedicated resistance members struggled to identify specific human characteristics that were being lost and whether those characteristics represented valuable diversity or destructive limitations. The underground faced the uncomfortable possibility that successful resistance to alien guidance might condemn humanity to technological stagnation, continued conflicts, and eventual self-destruction through the same developmental failures that had befallen 3L Atlas's parent civilization. The choice between guided development and autonomous failure represented a philosophical dilemma that no human generation had ever confronted. As resistance activities continued in the shadows of galactic surveillance, one question haunted every clandestine meeting and encrypted communication. Were they fighting to preserve essential human dignity and autonomy, or were they selfishly rejecting wisdom that could lead their species toward a better future among the stars? The crisis that would define humanity's relationship with galactic civilization began without warning on March 15th, when monitoring stations throughout the outer solar system detected massive gravitational disturbances approaching from the direction of Alpha Centauri. Dr. Foster's deep space observation teams initially dismissed the readings as instrumental errors, but within hours it became clear that something unprecedented was approaching our solar system at velocities that defied conventional physics. The gravitational signature was unlike anything we'd encountered during the 3L Atlas incident, Dr. Foster explained during the emergency briefing session convened at the United Nations. We were looking at distortions in space-time that suggested either a single massive object or a coordinated fleet moving at significant fractions of light speed. Whatever was approaching possessed capabilities that made our previous alien encounters seem primitive by comparison. The galactic monitoring stations responded to the approaching threat with immediate activation of what could only be described as defensive systems. The previously passive installations suddenly began generating intense electromagnetic fields and gravitational anomalies that created visible distortions in the space surrounding each station. Humanity was witnessing the deployment of weapons technology that operated according to principles beyond current scientific understanding. The mathematical communications from the monitoring network took on an urgency that human translators had never encountered in previous alien transmissions. Dr. Petrov's cryptanalysis teams worked frantically to decode warning messages that described an approaching force identified as the Expansion Fleet, representatives of a galactic faction that opposed the protective quarantine policies administered by the Territorial Maintenance Collective. The Expansion Fleet subscribed to fundamentally different philosophies about managing emerging civilizations. Rather than protecting developing species through gradual guidance and quarantine protocols, they advocated for immediate integration of promising civilizations into galactic society, regardless of cultural readiness or technological maturity. Their approach had led to rapid advancement for some species, but catastrophic cultural collapse for many others. Dr. Harrison's xenobiological analysis of the transmitted data revealed disturbing patterns in Expansion Fleet methodology. Species under their influence typically achieved dramatic technological advancement within decades, but suffered from severe social instability, loss of cultural identity, and psychological disorders that resulted from exposure to concepts and capabilities far beyond their natural developmental pace. The approaching fleet consisted of 17 massive vessels, each comparable in size to terrestrial cities and equipped with technology that could reshape planetary surfaces or relocate entire civilizations across interstellar distances. These were not law enforcement ships like the asteroid swarm that had captured 3L Atlas, but conquest vessels designed to transform entire solar systems according to Expansion Fleet objectives. The galactic monitoring stations transmitted detailed tactical assessments that revealed the scope of the approaching threat. The Expansion Fleet intended to terminate Earth's protective quarantine and forcibly integrate human civilization into galactic society through methods that would result in massive cultural disruption and psychological trauma for most of the human population. Resistance would be futile given their overwhelming technological superiority. Most alarmingly, the mathematical communications indicated that the Expansion Fleet's interest in humanity stemmed from our species' demonstrated resistance capabilities and independent thinking patterns. They viewed human opposition to benevolent alien guidance as evidence of psychological resilience that would make us valuable subjects for their accelerated integration experiments. The monitoring network began preparation for what appeared to be an inevitable military engagement between competing galactic factions, with Earth's solar system serving as the battlefield. Humanity found itself in the unprecedented position of being protected by the alien authorities they had been resisting, while facing conquest by aliens who promised the freedom from oversight that resistance movements had been demanding. Colonel Mitchell's resistance movement faced a philosophical crisis that challenged every assumption about their opposition to galactic authority. The approach of the Expansion Fleet revealed that the Territorial Maintenance Collective's protective oversight might be the only thing preventing humanity from forced integration that would destroy human civilization as completely as any military conquest. "We're learning that freedom from alien guidance doesn't mean independence," Colonel Mitchell explained during an emergency resistance leadership meeting. "It means becoming subjects of different aliens who have no interest in protecting human culture or psychological welfare. The choice isn't between autonomy and oversight, but between protective supervision and destructive exploitation." The mathematical communications from the monitoring stations included requests for human cooperation in defending our solar system against the approaching Expansion Fleet. The alien authorities were asking for active partnership in a military engagement that would determine not just Earth's future, but the precedent for how protective quarantine policies would be enforced throughout this sector of galactic space. Dr. Vasquez coordinated emergency sessions with world leaders to develop humanity's response to the request for military cooperation. The decision required balancing human desires for autonomy against the reality that protective alien guidance appeared preferable to forced integration that would eliminate human cultural identity entirely. The technical challenge of providing meaningful assistance to alien defenders possessed capabilities far exceeding human technology seemed insurmountable until the monitoring stations transmitted detailed instructions for constructing defensive equipment using materials and principles that human industry could produce. The aliens were providing weapons technology specifically designed for human manufacturing capabilities. Amateur radio operators within the Resistance network detected increasing communication traffic between monitoring stations as they coordinated defensive preparations. The alien transmissions included what appeared to be evacuation protocols for critical human populations and contingency plans for maintaining human civilization in the event that defensive efforts failed to prevent expansion fleet success. The approaching fleet's estimated arrival time created a countdown that dominated every aspect of human activity. Stock markets collapsed as investors realized that the outcome of an alien military engagement would determine whether human economic systems would continue to exist. Religious institutions struggled to provide comfort and guidance when facing threats that existed beyond any theological framework. Scientific institutions worldwide received detailed technical specifications from the monitoring stations for constructing equipment that would contribute to solar system defense. The alien technology transfers included innovations that would advance human science by centuries, but only if humanity survived the approaching engagement with capabilities and culture intact. The philosophical implications of choosing sides in a galactic conflict forced humanity to confront fundamental questions about independence, protection, and the price of autonomy. Supporting the Territorial Maintenance Collective meant accepting permanent alien guidance, while welcoming the expansion fleet meant cultural dissolution through forced advancement beyond human psychological capacity. Dr. Chen's observation teams documented massive construction projects beginning around each monitoring station as the alien installations prepared for combat operations. The scale of defensive preparations suggested that the approaching engagement would involve energy expenditures and weapons effects that could affect every planet in the solar system. International space agencies began crash programs to construct the defensive equipment specified in alien technical transfers, while military organizations worldwide prepared for supporting roles in a conflict that would be determined by technologies they couldn't understand, operated by intelligence they could barely comprehend. As the expansion fleet continued its approach toward our solar system, one fact became terrifyingly clear. Humanity's first major test of galactic citizenship would not involve gradual evaluation of our developmental progress, but immediate choice between competing forms of alien dominance that would determine whether human civilization survived in any recognizable form. The test of fire was approaching, and the flames would either forge humanity into something worthy of galactic citizenship or consume everything that made our species human in the furnace of forced advancement. The first joint human-alien military operation in recorded history began at 6:42 GMT on March 22nd, when construction crews at the Atacama Desert facility successfully activated the defensive array, built according to specifications transmitted by the galactic monitoring stations. The moment of activation marked humanity's transition from protected observers to active participants in galactic military conflict. Dr. Michael Santos, chief engineer for the International Defense Consortium, monitored the startup sequence with a mixture of pride and terror as human-built equipment interfaced with alien technology systems whose operating principles remained largely incomprehensible to terrestrial science. We were essentially building components for a machine we couldn't understand, following blueprints written in mathematical languages we were still learning to decode, he later reported to the Emergency Coordination Committee. The defensive array materialized as a geometric lattice of crystalline structures that rose from the desert floor like a technological forest. Each component had been manufactured using conventional human materials and production methods, but their assembly created effects that violated known laws of physics. The completed installation generated localized gravitational fields and electromagnetic anomalies that interface seamlessly with the monitoring station's defensive networks. Similar construction projects activated simultaneously at 17 locations worldwide, creating a planetary defense grid that represented the first successful collaboration between human engineering capabilities and galactic military technology. The scale of coordination required for simultaneous activation demonstrated the sophisticated logistics that the monitoring stations had been implementing behind the visible educational and surveillance activities. Colonel Mitchell's resistance movement faced the ultimate test of their principles when monitoring stations transmitted urgent requests for human assistance in preparing defensive positions throughout the solar system. The same aliens they had been opposing for months were now requesting partnership in protecting Earth from conquest by forces that viewed human autonomy as an obstacle to efficient galactic integration. The situation forces us to confront the difference between theoretical independence and practical survival, Colonel Mitchell explained to his assembled resistance leadership. We can maintain ideological purity about human autonomy while watching our civilization be destroyed by aliens who don't care about human values. Or we can work with aliens who have at least demonstrated respect for human development and cultural preservation. The resistance vote to support defensive efforts passed by a narrow margin, with many members expressing profound discomfort about collaborating with the same galactic authorities they'd been organized to oppose. The decision required accepting that human independence might be permanently limited, but also acknowledged that some forms of alien influence were preferable to others. Dr. Petrov's cryptanalysis teams worked around the clock to decode increasingly complex tactical communications as the monitoring stations coordinated defensive preparations with human military organizations worldwide. The mathematical language had evolved to include real-time tactical concepts, weapon specifications, and strategic assessments that pushed human translation capabilities to their absolute limits. The technical challenge of integrating human military equipment with alien defensive systems required innovations that advanced terrestrial engineering by decades within weeks. Human technicians learned to construct interfaces between conventional electronics and exotic matter systems that operated according to principles that wouldn't be formally understood by human science for generations. Amateur radio operators within the resistance network began detecting communication traffic that suggested the approaching expansion fleet was larger and more technologically advanced than initial estimates had indicated. The monitoring station's defensive preparations were expanding to cover contingencies that implied the coming engagement would determine the fate of multiple star systems, not just Earth's solar neighborhood. The philosophical implications of the alliance forced humanity to reconsider fundamental assumptions about independence, sovereignty, and the nature of freedom in a galaxy populated by civilizations whose capabilities transcended human technological understanding. True autonomy might be impossible for species operating at vastly different technological levels, making the choice between different forms of dependence rather than between dependence and independence. Dr. Harrison's xenobiological analysis of the alliance dynamics revealed patterns that suggested the Territorial Maintenance Collective viewed human cooperation as a crucial test of our species' potential for eventual galactic citizenship. Our willingness to work with protective authorities against destructive forces demonstrated the kind of wisdom and pragmatism that successful galactic civilizations required. The integration process revealed that the monitoring stations had been subtly preparing human technology and infrastructure for potential military cooperation since their initial establishment. Communication networks, power generation systems and manufacturing capabilities had been gradually modified through educational transmissions and minor interventions to ensure compatibility with galactic defensive requirements when needed. International space agencies coordinated the most ambitious construction project in human history as defensive installations expanded throughout the inner solar system. Human spacecraft delivered equipment to asteroid mining facilities that had been covertly modified to serve as forward defensive positions, while orbital manufacturing platforms produced components for weapon systems that operated on principles beyond current human theoretical frameworks. The mathematical briefings from the monitoring stations included detailed intelligence about expansion fleet capabilities and tactical doctrines that revealed the scope of the approaching threat. The attacking force possessed planet-killing weapons, matter transportation systems, and consciousness manipulation technologies that could eliminate human civilization without conventional military engagement. Dr. Chen's observation teams documented the transformation of seemingly peaceful monitoring stations into military installations, whose defensive capabilities dwarfed the weapons systems that had captured 3L Atlas months earlier. The alien authorities had been maintaining armed forces throughout their educational mission, prepared for exactly this type of intervention by competing galactic factions. The human contribution to defensive efforts primarily involved logistics, communication relay systems, and operation of equipment specifically designed for terrestrial manufacturing capabilities. While technologically primitive compared to galactic military systems, human facilities provided distributed redundancy and local knowledge that enhanced overall defensive effectiveness. Military strategists studying the defensive preparations identified tactical principles that challenged traditional concepts of space warfare. The engagement would involve weapons that could manipulate space-time, reality alteration effects, and consciousness-based combat systems that made conventional military doctrine obsolete. Victory would depend on technological superiority and strategic wisdom, rather than numerical advantages or tactical innovation. The psychological preparation for galactic warfare proved as challenging as the technical aspects of the Alliance. Human military personnel trained to operate equipment they couldn't understand, following tactical protocols that contradicted everything they had learned about combat operations. The learning curve required accepting that human military experience was essentially irrelevant when dealing with galactic-scale conflicts. Public reaction to the military alliance ranged from enthusiastic support for defending Earth against alien conquest to profound anxiety about humanity's complete dependence on alien protection. The reality that human survival depended on the outcome of a conflict between alien factions over policies that humans barely understood challenged every assumption about human agency and self-determination. As the expansion fleet continued its approach toward our solar system and defensive preparations reached completion, one question dominated every strategic planning session and philosophical discussion. Had humanity chosen the right alien protectors, or were we simply exchanging one form of cosmic servitude for another in a universe where true independence might be impossible for technologically primitive civilizations? The alliance of necessity was complete, and the coming battle would determine not just Earth's fate, but whether human civilization could maintain its essential character while participating in galactic conflicts that operated according to principles we were only beginning to comprehend. The expansion fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of our solar system on March 28 at 14:17 GMT, their arrival creating gravitational shock waves that registered on seismic monitoring equipment across Earth despite occurring billions of kilometers away. The 17 massive vessels materialized in formations that demonstrated tactical sophistication refined across millions of years of galactic conquest operations. Dr. Foster's deep space observation teams watched in fascination and terror as the enemy fleet began immediate deployment of what could only be described as reality alteration weapons. Space itself appeared to bend and twist around the expansion fleet vessels, creating optical distortions that made precise tracking impossible while generating energy signatures that overwhelmed every detection system pointed in their direction. The galactic monitoring stations responded to the fleet's arrival with activation of defensive systems that transformed the outer solar system into a three-dimensional battlefield, operating according to physics that human science could barely comprehend. Massive energy barriers materialized between planetary orbits, while gravitational weapons began generating artificial black holes that served as both shields and offensive weapons. Colonel Mitchell coordinated human military contributions to the defense from a command center buried beneath NORAD's Cheyenne Mountain facility, where screens displayed tactical information transmitted by alien monitoring stations in mathematical formats that required constant translation. "We're essentially watching a war between gods," he reported to the International Coordination Committee. "Our role is to maintain communication links and operate equipment we don't understand according to instructions we're still learning to decode." The initial engagement began when expansion fleet forces launched what appeared to be probing attacks against the outer defensive perimeter. These weren't conventional weapons, but reality distortion fields that attempted to alter the fundamental properties of space-time in localized regions, potentially allowing the attacking fleet to bypass defensive barriers by changing the nature of the space they occupied. Dr. Petrov's cryptanalysis teams worked frantically to translate real-time tactical communications as the monitoring stations coordinated responses to enemy probing attacks. The mathematical language had evolved to include concepts from theoretical physics that wouldn't be developed by human science for centuries, describing weapon effects and defensive countermeasures that operated through manipulation of dimensional boundaries and consciousness-matter interactions. The human-built defensive arrays activated automatically as the engagement intensified, their crystalline structures beginning to glow with energies that created aurora-like effects in Earth's upper atmosphere. The equipment constructed according to alien specifications was performing functions that its human builders couldn't understand, contributing to defensive operations through mechanisms that violated every known law of physics. Amateur astronomers worldwide reported unprecedented visual phenomena as the battle unfolded in the outer solar system. Bright flashes appeared and disappeared against the stellar background, while geometric patterns of light stretched across the sky in ways that suggested the combatants were fighting with controlled stars and directed gravity fields. The scale of weapons effects dwarfed anything in human military experience. The philosophical implications of witnessing galactic warfare forced humanity to confront the insignificance of terrestrial conflicts when compared to battles between civilizations whose technological capabilities approached what earlier generations might have considered divine powers. Nuclear weapons, humanity's most destructive military technology, were primitive firecrackers compared to devices that could restructure the fundamental properties of matter and energy. Dr. Harrison's xenobiological monitoring teams detected massive casualties among the expansion fleet forces during the first 6 hours of engagement, but the alien mathematics describing battle damage operated according to concepts that didn't translate directly into human understanding of life and death. The combatants appeared to exist partially outside normal space-time, making conventional assessment of military effectiveness nearly impossible. The monitoring stations began requesting specific human assistance with defensive operations that required distributed processing capabilities across multiple locations. Human-computer networks were being integrated into galactic military systems, providing computational redundancy and communication relay functions that enhanced overall defensive coordination without requiring understanding of the tactical principles involved. Dr. Chen's observation teams documented the most spectacular display of advanced technology ever witnessed by human science. The battle involved weapons that could create temporary pocket universes, consciousness transfer systems that allowed combatants to survive the destruction of their physical vessels, and reality editing technologies that could retroactively alter the outcome of previous engagements. The human contribution to defensive efforts proved more significant than initial assessments had suggested. The distributed nature of terrestrial communication networks and the intuitive problem-solving capabilities of human operators provided tactical advantages that purely artificial galactic systems couldn't duplicate. Humanity's technological primitiveness was actually enhancing defensive effectiveness through redundancy and unpredictability. Military strategists studying the engagement identified tactical patterns that suggested the expansion fleet was probing for weaknesses in both technological systems and decision-making processes. The attacking forces were apparently evaluating the alliance between human and galactic defenders, searching for psychological or philosophical vulnerabilities that might be exploited to break cooperative efforts. The battle's second phase began when expansion fleet forces attempted to establish beachheads within the asteroid belt, using matter transportation technology to deploy assault forces that bypassed the outer defensive perimeter. These infiltration attempts required the monitoring stations to activate close-range defensive systems that had remained hidden throughout their months of educational and surveillance activities. Dr. Santos coordinated human engineering teams that provided critical support for defensive installations throughout the inner solar system. Human manufacturing capabilities were producing replacement components for battle-damaged galactic military systems faster than the monitoring station's automated systems could manage, demonstrating the value of biological intelligence in crisis situations. The psychological toll on human observers became evident as reports of battlefield stress reactions began appearing among personnel operating defensive equipment. Witnessing warfare that operated beyond human comprehension, while participating in battles whose outcome would determine their species' survival, created levels of psychological pressure that had no precedent in military medicine. International space agencies reported that the gravitational effects of the ongoing battle were beginning to influence planetary orbits in measurable ways. The combatants were fighting with such massive energies that their weapons' effects were altering the structure of the solar system itself, potentially affecting Earth's climate and orbital stability for generations to come. The resistance movement faced the ultimate validation of their alliance decision, as expansion fleet forces began broadcasting surrender demands directly to Earth's population. The enemy communications promised immediate technological advancement and galactic integration in exchange for abandoning the defensive alliance and accepting expansion fleet authority over human development. Dr. Vasquez coordinated the international response to these surrender demands, working with world leaders to craft rejection messages that demonstrated human commitment to the alliance, despite the obvious risks of continued resistance. The decision required accepting that defeat would mean not just conquest, but complete transformation of human civilization, according to expansion fleet developmental philosophies. As the battle entered its critical phase with expansion fleet forces attempting to penetrate the inner solar system defensive perimeter, one fact became clear to every human observer. The outcome of this engagement would determine whether humanity remained recognizably human while achieving galactic citizenship, or became something entirely different in the aftermath of forced advancement that eliminated the essential characteristics of our species. The battle for our solar system had become the battle for human identity itself, fought with weapons that could reshape reality and consciousness, according to the will of civilizations whose power approached the level of cosmic forces. The decisive moment came on March 30th at 21:43 GMT, when human operators at the Australian Deep Space Communication Complex detected an anomaly in the expansion fleet's formation that would change the entire trajectory of the galactic engagement. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, monitoring communication intercepts from the enemy fleet, noticed a mathematical pattern in their tactical transmissions that suggested internal disagreement about the prosecution of the assault. The expansion fleet wasn't as unified as we'd assumed, Lieutenant Kim later reported to the International Tactical Coordination Committee. We were detecting communication traffic that indicated significant philosophical divisions within their command structure about the ethics of forced integration versus the potential value of preserving human cultural development through gradual advancement. Dr. Petrov's cryptanalysis teams worked frantically to decode the intercepted transmissions, discovering that a substantial faction within the expansion fleet questioned the wisdom of destroying or forcibly advancing a species that had demonstrated such remarkable adaptability and cooperative potential during the crisis. The human response to galactic warfare had apparently impressed even conquest-oriented alien civilizations. The monitoring stations capitalized on this division by transmitting detailed reports about human behavior during the alliance formation and defensive cooperation. The galactic authorities were providing real-time evidence that humanity possessed the psychological resilience and wisdom necessary for successful voluntary integration, making forced advancement both unnecessary and potentially destructive to valuable cultural diversity. The mathematical communications revealed that the expansion fleet's internal debate centered on fundamental questions about the nature of consciousness, cultural evolution, and the optimal methods for expanding galactic civilization. The aggressive faction maintained that rapid forced advancement was more efficient and ultimately more humane than allowing species to struggle through developmental challenges independently. However, the moderate faction within the expansion fleet had been studying humanity's response to the 3L Atlas incident, the establishment of monitoring stations, and the formation of the defensive alliance. Their analysis suggested that human civilization demonstrated exactly the kind of autonomous development potential that made protective quarantine policies more appropriate than forced integration protocols. Dr. Harrison's xenobiological analysis of the intercepted communications provided insight into the complex political dynamics within galactic civilization itself. The Territorial Maintenance Collective and the Expansion Fleet represented different philosophical approaches to a fundamental question that had apparently divided galactic society for millions of years: whether emerging civilizations developed best through protection and guidance or through forced exposure to advanced knowledge and technology. The turning point accelerated when 3 expansion fleet vessels suddenly ceased offensive operations and began broadcasting mathematical communications toward the monitoring stations rather than their own command structure. These ships were apparently defecting from the assault force and requesting negotiation protocols with the Territorial Maintenance Collective about alternative approaches to human development. Colonel Mitchell's resistance movement found themselves in the surreal position of monitoring alien political negotiations that would determine humanity's future while having no direct voice in the discussions. The defecting expansion fleet vessels were essentially arguing for human autonomy rights based on evidence of our species' demonstrated wisdom and adaptability during the crisis. The negotiation process revealed the existence of a third galactic faction that had been observing the engagement from concealed positions throughout the outer solar system. The Developmental Assessment Collective specialized in evaluating emerging civilizations during crisis situations to determine their optimal integration pathways into galactic society. These assessors had been conducting detailed analysis of human responses to every aspect of the alien contact experience, from our initial diplomatic communications during the 3L Atlas incident to our willingness to form military alliances with protective alien authorities. The battle itself had been as much an evaluation exercise as a genuine military engagement. Dr. Chen's observation teams detected massive changes in the tactical situation as the negotiating factions began implementing what appeared to be a ceasefire agreement. Weapons effect ceased throughout the outer solar system, while the defecting expansion fleet vessels moved into formation with the monitoring stations to present a united front for continuing negotiations. The mathematical communications during the negotiation phase included humanity's first detailed briefing about galactic political structures and the decision-making processes that determined the fate of emerging civilizations. We learned that our solar system had become a test case for competing developmental philosophies that would influence galactic policy toward thousands of other emerging species. The assessment data presented by the Developmental Assessment Collective provided humanity with its first comprehensive evaluation report from galactic authorities. The analysis was overwhelmingly positive, particularly regarding our species' ability to maintain cultural integrity while adapting to external challenges and our demonstrated capacity for cooperative behavior under extreme stress. Most significantly, the assessors had identified human resistance movements as evidence of healthy psychological development rather than problematic opposition to authority. The existence of organized resistance that questioned alien oversight while ultimately choosing cooperation over self-destruction demonstrated the kind of balanced wisdom that successful galactic civilizations required. The negotiation process culminated in an unprecedented agreement that would reshape galactic policy toward emerging civilizations throughout this sector of space. Humanity would serve as a pilot program for a new developmental approach that balanced protective guidance with respect for autonomous cultural evolution. Under the new framework, Earth would retain greater autonomy in determining its developmental pace, while receiving continued educational and technological guidance from galactic authorities. The monitoring stations would remain, but their role would shift from surveillance and protection toward consultation and voluntary assistance with human-identified challenges. Dr. Vasquez coordinated humanity's formal response to the negotiated agreement, working with world leaders to craft acceptance messages that demonstrated our understanding of both the privileges and responsibilities associated with our new status as galactic civilization's first autonomous development partner. The remaining expansion fleet vessels began departure procedures following the agreement ratification, but not before transmitting detailed technical specifications for technologies that would accelerate human space exploration and interstellar communication capabilities. Even the aggressive faction acknowledged that humanity had earned respect through our performance during the crisis. As the immediate military threat receded and normal solar system conditions began returning, one question dominated every discussion among human leaders, scientists, and philosophers. Had humanity truly achieved a more autonomous relationship with galactic civilization, or had we simply negotiated a more comfortable form of supervision that preserved the illusion of independence while maintaining effective alien control? The turning point had transformed crisis into opportunity, but the long-term implications of our new galactic status would only become clear as humanity began implementing the negotiated framework for autonomous development under the watchful guidance of civilizations whose wisdom encompassed millions of years of experience with the challenges and opportunities of cosmic citizenship.